All right, everyone, welcome to the City Council meeting for October 22nd. And we're calling this portion of the meeting to order at 5:02 PM. May we have roll call?
Councilmember Brotman.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Mayor Asadurian. And Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Here. Mr. Ajemian, will you please read what we have on the docket for the closed session item?
Item number 1A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9, one potential case.
Do we anticipate reporting out on this, Mr. Garcia?
We do not anticipate reporting out.
Okay, with that, we'll recess to closed session and we'll try to be back by 6. Thank you. All right, good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of October 22nd, 2024, being called to order at 6:05 PM. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, council members Brotman,
Here.
Barpetian,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kazakian,
Here.
and Mayor Asatrian.
All right, thank you very much. I'll be presiding over the meeting this evening in place of Mayor Asatrian, who is traveling. She is not here. And I'd like to ask everyone now to rise, place your right hand over your hearts, and pledge allegiance to the flag of our nation. Remain standing for the invocation.
Let us begin by acknowledging that we are on the indigenous lands of the Tongva people. We are thankful for this day that we have been given, for its blessings, its opportunities, and also challenges. May we have the strength, discernment, and compassion to carry forth the duties of this council today, keeping in mind the needs of the most vulnerable in our community. May we be challenged to draw upon our best selves for the service of our city. Thank you.
Everyone may have a seat. Thank you. May we have the city clerk's report?
Yes, the first item is presentations and appointments. There will be no city council meeting on October 29, 2024. The next council meeting will be on November 5th, 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And next on the agenda is presentation and appointments, and we have at 3A the preview of the upcoming agenda. Mr. Tektalian?
We do not have a meeting next week, so there is no preview.
All right, so we will be dark on October 29th and coming back to you in early November. So the next item under presentation and appointments, 3B, is the legislative update by Assemblymember Laura Friedman. Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you
Yes, I
to
will
bring
pull up,
Assemblymember Friedman online.
yes. And let me just share this. Okay. Do I bring this here as well? Oh. Assemblymember Friedman, we're ready.
Hello, everybody. It's really wonderful to be able to spend a little time with you this evening for a very brief legislative update. As I do every year, it's great to be able to present the work that I've been doing in Sacramento for the past year. Now, this was a difficult budget year, as you may have heard. So it was a challenging year to pass legislation because the finances attached to anything that the legislature was doing was very closely scrutinized this year, which I think is very proper. And so we introduced, a number of bills, and I'm very pleased that 12 of them were ultimately passed and signed into law, and those are the 12 that I'll be telling you about this evening. I'm also very proud that most of these bills had bipartisan support, and many of them had bipartisan authorship as well, and co-authors. So, Madam City Clerk, if you'd like to go to the first slide, we'll just go through them. And if you have questions on any particular bills, City Council members and Mayor Pro Tem, as we go through, please, you can either ask at the end or, I'm fine if you want to interrupt me to ask any questions. I'll go through these, fairly quickly. AB 761 is a bill that we introduced on behalf of LA Metro and the Board of Supervisors in the City of West Hollywood. This is a bill that basically aligns some of California's advanced infrastructure financing districts to take advantage of the timelines required by new federal grant programs passed by the Biden administration. So this will allow for LA Metro and other agencies throughout the state to be able to compete for federal money, federal grants and federal loans. So this was a bill that, again, was bipartisan, had unanimous support, and very happy that this will now be enacted so that California can bring some resources in. AB 810 was a bill that we've worked on for 2 years. I have a legislative aide who was a student athlete in college and was he was a student athlete and was very upset about the varsity blues scandal, which happened when he was in school, and many of the people that he knew were unfortunately impacted by that scandal. This is a bill that deals with one of the problems that we have had in our universities with sexual harassment and unfortunately in some athletic departments, coaches being accused credibly of predatory behavior against their students and other type of malfeasance, who are allowed to retire and then move on to new employment, apply again at a different university without there being a record of their inappropriate behavior. We work with the UC system and came up with a way now that if there's credible accusations against tenure track faculty or people in the college athletic departments, those complaints must be investigated, and that prospective employers must be given that information, and prospective universities for employing people also have to request this information from previous schools that the applicant worked at, to make sure that they don't just, as it's been called by the LA Times and others, pass the harasser. So very proud that this had bipartisan co-authors and unanimous support in the legislature, and hopefully this will help break that cycle of abuse with some of our most vulnerable community members being college students who, really deserve a positive, experience when they're in college. AB 1868 was a bill, the second bill that I have authored in partnership with Habitat for Humanity, a nonprofit that we know very well in Glendale that's done a lot of wonderful work here in our city. This basically aligns the way that county assessors look at affordable housing projects that are going to be for sale, to make sure that they base their assessments on the ultimate buyer being low-income individuals, rather than on Habitat for Humanity or the City of Glendale or any other entities that are involved in the financing of these projects. Again, we had a unanimous support for this and Republican co-authors. Really glad to be continuing to work on issues around affordable housing, and in this case, affordable housing that is ownership for working individuals, working class individuals who deserve to also be able to own a property and develop stability and equity. And Habitat does great work, and this will help them in many parts of the state. Next slide, please. AB 1889 continues work that I have done. Next slide, please, Madam City Clerk. Oh, this is it, yeah. AB 1889 continues work that I've done to protect our wildlife. What this does is it asks for municipalities, when they update their general plans, to look at whether they have migrating animals in their communities and to plan around them. This is so that we don't keep seeing mountain lions dying on highways, deer in the northern part of the state particularly being involved in sometimes fatal collisions with traffic, bears being airlifted out of communities, when we know that there are ways of mitigating wildlife contact when communities are planned. This is a bill that many cities supported because it also gives cities the chance to use the State Fish and Game Agency to give them help as they're developing their wildlife and habitat connectivity plans. AB 1963 is about a well-known pesticide that people have talked about for many years in this country called paraquat. Paraquat is banned in 66 nations around the world, including China, which is where it's produced. We partnered with the Michael J. Fox Foundation who focuses on Parkinson's disease, because there's a very large link between paraquat use on farms and people developing Parkinson's-like symptoms. In fact, farm workers who work with paraquat have almost twice the national average of developing Parkinson's-like syndrome. So this is a bill that now will require the Department of Pesticide Regulation here in California to fast-track their ongoing reviews of paraquat to see whether it really is safe to be used in California farms. I was really proud that the famous Dolores Huerta was our primary witness when we presented this bill. It was a priority for groups that represent farm workers in California, and it will require, again, a fast-tracked evaluation of paraquat. AB 2297 continues work that I've been doing for many years on healthcare access. What this bill does is it modernizes the Hospital Fair Pricing Act to better protect patients who are low income. And the way it does that is by, first of all, making sure that hospitals don't have arbitrary limits on when people who are eligible for charity care can apply. Unfortunately, sometimes people leaving hospitals are not in a state of mind or don't understand that they have the ability to apply for reduced medical bills or payment plans, and hospitals will come back and say, oh no, sorry, you only had a month to apply or 2 months to apply. This gets rid of those limits so that people can better take advantage of existing law. It also prohibits for the first time liens on low-income residents' homes to collect unpaid medical debt. This is a scourge all across the country. Medical debt, which is not something anybody takes on by choice. Medical debt is still the leading driver of bankruptcies around the United States. And here in California, we still have hundreds of people who lose their homes because of unpaid medical debt, leading to homelessness and just despair to our elderly and low-income community. Let's move on to the next slide. AB 2552 continues, and this is, I think, the third bill that I've worked on around anticoagulant rodenticides. This is rat poison that is one of many, many classes of rat poison that people use to poison rats, but when the rats are sick and they kind of stumble into the street being poisoned by this pesticide, they tend to get eaten by predators like mountain lions, coyotes, hawks, and owls. Those animals are then poisoned by the same rodenticide. This is the reason why P22, our famous mountain lion from Griffith Park, had that famous photograph of him where he looked so sick with mange. That was rodenticide poisoning. That's the sign of rodenticide poisoning. What's actually happening in that animal and other predators that you see that look like they have mange or really sick is they are bleeding internally. They're hemorrhaging from this unintentional poisoning from this chemical. This has exceptions for the use to protect public health and for in agriculture, but what we don't want is people buying this stuff in Home Depot. It's also responsible for thousands of pet poisonings every year and human poisonings, particularly with children. So it's not necessary, and it's something that we really, people who live in the wildlife urban interfaces really see the devastating results of it with dead animals in our communities. AB 2553 helps the unhoused community utilize transportation so that they can get services that they need. This is another way that we can help people who are right now sleeping in our train stations, riding the bus all day because they have nowhere else to go, access funding to move into shelters and permanent housing. AB 2712 is a bill that says that if a development is using state law to not have to provide parking near transit, they can't access preferential parking for those residents who might otherwise be able to go into an existing neighborhood that is having problems with curbside parking. This was another bill that, this is a bill that we did in partnership with Miracle Mile Homeowners Association. Next slide. AB 2801 also comes from the experience of one of my ledge staff who is a young man who is a really good tenant who didn't cause any damage in his unit, but his landlord told him that he had to lose his security deposit to pay for new window shades. He even offered to buy new window shades, and the landlord said, no, we're just going to keep your security deposit to pay for it. We worked with the Apartment Owners Association on this legislation. They thought it would be protective of both of landlords and of tenants. And what it does is it asks for landlords to simply have photographs, a move-in condition of units, so that they can better show if there was damage later on, and so that tenants and landlords will have clarity about pre-existing damage and whether or not tenants cause damage later. AB 2875 was a bill that we worked on because of a Supreme Court decision called the Sackett decision that basically this last year rolled back Environmental Protection Agency protections of wetlands across the United States, including in California. We are down to just a few percentage of traditional wetlands in California. These are areas that provide really crucial habitat protection, but also flood protection in coastal zones. This was a bill that had bipartisan support. It simply puts into law California's goals of having no new net loss of wetlands in California and only new net gains. AB 2925 is a bill that we introduced in conjunction with the Jewish Federation and the Legislative Jewish Caucus, of which I am a member, to deal with what we have seen as rising anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on our college campuses. What this bill says is that if you're an Institute of Higher Learning and you have DEI, or diversity, inclusion, and equity training in your university or your college, that you can include as many groups as you want. You can be as expansive as you like, but you must also include the 5 groups that are experiencing the most discrimination and hate crimes within California. Those are tracked by the AG's office. So every 2 years, we know which groups are experiencing the most hate crimes and discrimination. We want to make sure that universities don't have their own implicit biases in terms of who they are protecting and training about. So unfortunately, during the last year since the Israel-Gaza conflict has caused so much activity on college campuses, that very few of our universities trained on anti-Semitism in particular. And so they didn't have people who were trained to understand what crossed the line to anti-Semitism in terms of some of these protests. Well, now we work with the UCs. They supported the legislation. Now we'll make sure that there's no blind spots in terms of who we are making sure that we protect from hatred on our college campuses. This was a bill that had, again, Republican co-authors and very strong bipartisan support. Next slide, please. So that was all of the legislation that we had signed into law this year. I did want to talk about some of the key budget items from the state. For one thing, as part of the Legislative Women's Caucus, I've been very focused on funding and legislation that uplifts women and girls in California. Child care access is something that's very important to many of our low-income families. The ability to return to work for many women often hinges on their ability to have affordable and quality child care. This budget piece that was secured is almost $3 billion in one-time funds for childcare reimbursement increases to make sure that we no longer have people who can qualify for subsidized childcare but can't access that care within their community. We also were able to secure a 5% increase to the UC and CSU to support 12,000 more spots for Californians at our UC and CSU system to help people access higher education. Over $500,000 for an 8.2% COLA to the statutorily required TK through 12 programs in our schools, $762 million to expand the universal transitional kindergarten program to again make sure that our TK students can get into school and have spots for them if they so desire. $110 million increase in the 2022 and 23 budget year, and $154 million increase in the 23-24 budget year to cover the full cost of California's universal meal program for our school kids. And I know many of the parents at home are really, really glad that their kids now have breakfast and lunch provided for them free of charge in our school system. $227 million in one-time general funds for the middle class scholarship program, again, to help people access college. It's really hard for people who are middle class sometimes to afford college for their kids. This will help with that. And then increased funding for the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. So what you're seeing here is a budget that is very, very focused on educational access. Next slide, please. In addition, for Glendale, and these are budget asks that I was able to secure for our city. In 2017, $20 million for the LA Garden River Bridge. For those of you not paying attention, this is the bridge that we have been working on for a very long time to connect Glendale to Griffith Park for pedestrians and cyclists. This is where you can go from probably right around Grayson Power Plant by the end of the Riverwalk project, if you know that bike and pedestrian pathway along the LA River, and be able to cross the LA River to get by the soccer fields and the dog park in Griffith Park. And I have been in conversations with the LA City Council members in that part of Los Angeles who are very anxious to help upgrade the LA side of this project so that there will be bus connectivity to get you to the observatory, to to the Greek Theater and all around Griffith Park, and also to improve bicycle and pedestrian paths on that side of Griffith Park to get people safely into the park, to the Autry Museum and to the zoo, which are, of course, within walking and biking distance of where this bridge will go. In 2021, I was able to secure $10 million for that bridge as well. Would love at some point to get an update from the city of where we are. $30 million from the state is a lot of money to go into Glendale for this really key piece of connectivity, and I'm very excited to, hopefully see that get built. Also in 2022, I was able to secure almost $14.5 million for library renovations, open space preservation, active transportation infrastructure improvements along the Verdugo Wash, and also critical equipment for wildlife mitigation. And then in 2023, almost $1 million for the Fremont Park renovation, a great park right by Pacific and the 134, if you know it, but long in need of some renovations. Next slide. And then I wanted to just call out my nonprofit of the year for this year, which was GLA, the Glendale Latino Association. They do really amazing work in the city. They have for many, many years. Very proud to have been able to present them with nonprofit of the year. And I think that is our last slide. And with that, one more slide, which is just for the public. If you need to contact my office, if you have comments for us, if you have questions, we have a capital office which deals with a lot of the legislation, and we have a district office that stands by to help you with any constituent services you need, help with DMV, help with EDD. We stand by to help, and if we can't help, we will find out what other government agencies are able to help you if possible. That is, what my staff does in the district office. I am only going to be an assembly member for another month. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I do want to say that it's been an absolute pleasure working with everyone at the City of Glendale. As a former city council member and mayor, it's always special for me to be able to join you here in Glendale, and really, really want to thank you as a citizen for all of the work that all of you do on the City Council and also the staff. I know that the City of Glendale has some of the hardest working and most dedicated staff members in the state of California. And I love living in Glendale, and it's really because of the amazing quality of life we have here in city services. So I want to thank all of you for doing the hard work that you do every single week to make this city wonderful. And with that, I'll pause to see if you have any questions.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Let me turn to my colleagues, see who would like to ask you some questions or follow-ups. Councilmember Brotman, go ahead.
Hi, Assemblymember Friedman. Thank you for your report. I don't have questions about your specific bills here, and I know you're always accessible, so when I do have questions, I just reach out to you when that happens. Just one thing, you said 12 bills signed by the governor. That's a pretty remarkable number, because I know the governor, I know a lot of bills die along the way. They die in committees, they die in appropriations or on the Senate side, and then they get to the governor and they get vetoed. And that seems to me an unusually high number. Is that right? And what do you attribute that to?
It is probably a little above average this year. I think that it is because we try our best to build coalitions, to work with groups of stakeholders, whether it's groups like Habitat for Humanity, whether it's our county supervisors, whether it is working across the aisle with our Republican counterparts to identify things that are real issues in the community, like housing, like healthcare access, and making sure that we are doing legislation that's targeted to being practical and solving problems. And I'm very proud that we did have as many bills signed into law, and I do expect them to be helpful. And so thank you for acknowledging that. It's also due to my amazing team. We have a great team in Sacramento. We have a great team here in here in the district as well.
Thanks. And I know this is going to be your last report to us, so I just want to say I've also enjoyed working with you, and I really, really appreciate and admire the work you've done on climate, on clean air and water quality, eliminating toxic toxic substances, which I know you've worked on for many years, including toxic substances in cosmetics and in other things, your work on wildlife, and especially your work on promoting active transportation and housing around transit. So I really, admire the work you've done, and I hope your successor, whoever that is, continues this good work in the legislature, and I hope you push for a lot of these same things at the federal level if we're so lucky to have you represent us there.
Thank you, Councilmember. I appreciate that.
All right, any of my other colleagues, Councilmember Najarian, Councilmember Garpetian?
Yes. Hi, Laura. Thank you for everything you've done for our city. I have a question about AB 2712, the preferential parking privileges for the developments that if they're within half a mile of any public transit, they're exempt from providing parking. I think we need to be a little bit careful on that because the fact that every family has at least one car, and we are not there to give up our cars, and our public transportation is not there to provide that good public transportation, so we would give up our cars. What happens to people who live in these transits? I know that they cannot get a permit within that half a mile of that building that is built with no parking or very little parking, and they have a car, they want to park. What do they do if they cannot get permits? Where do they park their cars?
Sure, thank you for the question. So first of all, the bill does have an exception for low-income individuals and of course anybody with a handicap placard as well. So, we have been talking to quite a lot of folks in the development community, and what we're seeing is that by and large, people that are building market rate housing are adding the parking because they know that if they're renting new apartments that are market rate, they're competing against other developers. And so they are actually building the same kind of parking for their residents. The group that was most interested in this legislation were people who are building low-income housing. What they find is that a lot of times their tenants do not have cars. And what they're doing is the bill allows them to experiment with having some units that don't have parking for people who are self-selecting into those units because they may not have a car. A lot of the people who do ride public transportation in Los Angeles, and we do have people who are transit dependent, where there are people in our community who do not own cars. A lot of our lower income workers are the exact people who are using public transportation, using the bus system, sometimes riding bikes to get to work. And a lot of these folks are willing to rent, who would be very happy to rent a unit that doesn't come with parking, which they don't need, and are able to pay a less amount of money for that parking. What some cities are doing is managed parking. They're looking at underused or unused parking lots and old commercial structures. Some cities build their own parking. What we're hoping more cities do is to add the kind of robust public transportation that these low-income folks are already relying on to get to their job and move around their communities.
Right, yeah, thank you. Many of the new developments, they have about 10 to 15% affordable units incorporated in there, but the rest of them are market rate, and people who use rent market rate units, they are not low income and they all have a car. So I think we need to look into it in a lens that sees both sides of this issue, and not to loosen up these parking requirements too much because it really creates, we have developments in Glendale that are approved, 50 units with 30 parking spaces, and it's gonna, but again, I think we can work around many of the things, but parking is something that I don't think people are giving up their cars. But as far as everything else, the funds that you brought to Glendale, we thank you for that, except the Verdugo Wash project. You know how I feel about that. So, I understand that, we all have different, mindset on different issues, and so we'll see how that goes. But other than that, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you very much. If there's no other questions, then we'd like to thank the Assembly member. There are a few callers and a card on this item, but it all depends on what your Time is like assembly member, whether you wish to stay on or if you have to leave, we understand.
I am probably going to have to leave you, but I will, my staff is there, so they will certainly report back about the speakers.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we wish you well. Thank you very much, and let's go to the callers.
Thank you.
The first public comment is by Mike Mohill.
Oh, yes, let's take the first one in person, and then we have 2 people on the call. And once Mr. Mohill is done with his 3 minutes, then we'll stop taking callers and cards on this item.
Good evening, council members and Assemblywoman Laura Freeman. I didn't know that she was going to give a campaign speech tonight. This is what she gave here. This was nothing but a campaign speech because she's running for the Assembly against Congress against Alex Balikian. Maybe he should have equal time and give his campaign speech here too. She promotes, part of California Democrats, sanctuary state. And we have illegal immigration in this state. And we have high crime because of people like Laura Freeman. She wants bike lanes to be removed, the traffic lanes. I'm against that, and so are most people in the city of Glendale. High taxes and fees are driving out the film and TV industry. You got high taxes, and you got high electric rates. And the money that the state gives the film industry is the pittance to the cost it costs to do business in the state of California. Thank you, Laura Freeman, and your woke technology and your woke ideas. Freeman mentions bipartisan support for a lot of her legislation. What's kind of funny, when you have a supermajority of Democrats up in Sacramento, it ain't hard to get 1 or 2 Republicans. Because of high taxes and fees, millions of Californians have already left the state for either Texas, Florida, and other places. And now we even have businesses, great businesses, and like Elon Musk. He just announced that he's taking his business out of our California state. Who's gonna fill these jobs? Laura Freeman? Oh, I forgot, you're gonna have more illegals come into the state of California and take the jobs from good Americans. Is that fair? You know, I've been listening to Laura Freeman for years now, and all she's for is developers, not the people. Look at the state of California today. Look at our educational system today. Thank you, Laura Freeman, and your ilk. And I hope Alex Balikian comes here next week. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is on the phone. Let's go to the callers.
The next person is Tony Pastorella. Tony, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. Mike Mohill is exactly right. I really suspect the timing of this presentation, and she doesn't even have the courage, Laura Freeman doesn't even have the courage to come in and do this in person. She has to do it remotely. But this was basically making her look good, and then we got Mr. Brotman over there pumping her up. It's definitely, the timing of this is very, very suspect. 2 weeks out from the election, C-830. And what Freeman wants to do is she wants to get us out of our cars, people. Just understand that. That's her main thrust. Get us out of the cars, pack us down in 15-minute cities, control 15-minute cities. She's a joke. I reject Laura Freeman 100%. Thank you.
Okay, and final caller?
Our final caller is Jordan Henry. Jordan, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I am calling to give a third opinion against Laura Freeman. Everything that she spoke about is going to increase spending. The state of California has approximately $73 billion in deficit spending today. And that just a few years ago, we had over $100 billion in surplus. So what happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. Inflationary spending. Every dollar that Laura Freeman promised to give back to the people only decreases the value of their dollars. She got up here and she talked about equity in our public institutions, giving people free meals. I'm sorry, but there is no free lunch. She said it was free. There is no free lunch. We are all paying for it, and every dollar that we give over to the government to spend back on us decreases the value of our own wealth. That's just fundamental economics. Dan Brotman, you're an economics professor. You know exactly what I'm talking about, whether or not you're willing to admit it, because you're a proponent of modern monetary theory. And we know that that's a joke, considering the current financial crisis we are in. She talked about market rate housing by developers. Developers have to do more market rate housing, and the only reason why the rate at which that development is costing more and more is because the state forces affordable housing. The more the state controls the market, the more the market has to respond for increased spending. This is just fundamentals, guys. If any public listener, anybody in the public is listening to this, you need to look at this as at a macroeconomic, a macro-cultural phenomenon where the Democrats are just trying to get control. They want control over your public schools, your local zoning, the way that you're able to spend your money, where you can spend your money, how development is going to happen, whether or not bike lanes are going to go into your neighborhood, reduction of lanes. They're going to try to spend $1 billion locally on the Verdugo Wash. We all know that's a joke. And these people don't really care about you and your personal quality of life. They have an ideology. They have a one-track mind. They know the solution. She says, come and call us, talk to us. We'd love to incorporate your ideas. She's lying to you. She doesn't care. Not at all. All she is trying to do is garner more power, more influence, and now in a federal office in order to subvert your bank account, subvert your local control. She wants to reduce the wealth in your bank account so the government has to intervene.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Solution.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent items. Madam Clerk, will you please read that? And I believe there's been a request to pull item 4C, I believe. Is there any requests for other items to be pulled from the dais?
Yes, 4F, please.
4F will also come off the calendar.
Now
the consent.
4D.
Okay, and 4D. Okay, so with 4C, D, and F being pulled,
I'll move the balance of the
balance of the consent items have been moved by Councilmember Najarian,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Garpetian. May we have roll call on this item, please?
Yes. Council members Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Asatryan, and Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes. Will you please read 4C into the record?
Yes. 4C is Glendale Water and Power regarding professional services agreement with Eagle Aerial Solutions for consulting services related to Senate Bill 606 and Assembly Bill 1668, water conservation compliance efforts. 1, motion authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter into and execute a professional services agreement with Eagle Aerial Solutions for consulting services related to Senate Bill 606 and Assembly Bill 1668 compliance efforts in not to exceed amount of $156,710.
All right, thank you. I'll turn to our Assistant City Manager to give a report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian. I'm actually going to ask our Assistant General Manager of our Water Department, Chisholm Obeglu, to come up and ask that he not only provide a background on what this contract's about, but explain how this ties back into SB 606 and Assembly Bill 1668.
Welcome,
thank you,
Mr.
John.
Obegolu. Go ahead.
And good evening, council members. Chisholm Obegolo, Assistant GM of Water. SB 606 was promulgated in 2018, and this is a legislation that's really tailored towards making water conservation a way of life here in California. And it promotes water use efficiency targets, largely in part in response to the drought and the impacts of climate change. And really, it's surrounded around 3 things. Number 1 is indoor and outdoor residential water use. That is something that we can calculate here. We do have AMI, automatic metering infrastructure, that we can use to calculate what that figure will be. As well as water loss. Water loss, again, is something that we can calculate. We know how much water we produce. We know how much water we sell. We take the delta, and that is our water loss. And then lastly is what is known as CII, which is really this the object or the subject of this matter here, and that is commercial, industrial, and institution. And so we have to be able to calculate what is known as DIMs, or dedicated irrigation meters. This is something that we have to report to the state. This is the State Water Resources Control Board every year. And so Eagle Area will be helping us do a more in-depth, extensive analysis on our dedicated irrigation meters, primarily for our commercial irrigation and institutions. So this is our colleges, our high schools, elementary schools, golf courses, really anywhere with large landscapes.
All right, thank you very much. And so we have a number of cards that were submitted to speak on this item.
Mayor Pro Tem, correct. I have 3 cards for this item.
All right, let's hear from those who submitted cards to speak.
You can have a seat. Daniel Dessler. Daniel, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, gentlemen. I am not talking just about the water. I'm talking about electric too. The electric bill since last year has gone up 70%, and we have not had that on the ballot for us to say yes or no. No, you guys just arbitrarily raised our rates. 2 months ago, my rate was a little above 500. This month, it's 1,000. This is too much. This is getting way out of hand. I had printed out a list of bullet points that I want to talk about. I'd like to know where this money is going. I would like to know how you can raise the rate and double it when we are in such an economic crunch with all these companies that are raising their profits for no reason whatsoever other than just getting profits. How do I go about getting this reversed? How do I go about, what do I need to do to have some kind of say in this? I don't know where to start. Is it doing a petition? But the question is, you guys have already taken a 70% hike from what we had from last year. Now she wants to add, $600,000 more? This water hike with $100,000, and then the other one was something else. Is that going to be arbitrarily okayed, or is it going to be on the ballot for us to be able to say yes or no to it?
So, Mr. Dessler, this is specifically, the item before us is regarding this professional services agreement in relation to the Eagle Aerial Solutions Portal Development Company. I know that you wanted to expand your comments to the utilities costs in totality and in general.
Well, this is another cost going up. This is another cost that we are not going to be able to say yes or no on.
I understand for your desire to have the two connected, but this is regarding this specific item. We'll have staff respond to your question at the conclusion when we hear from all of the speakers.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Ajemian, next speaker.
Next speaker is Ray Sheldon. Ray, you have 3 minutes.
Just to add my voice, this is just another waste of taxpayer money.
Okay. We appreciate your brevity. Next speaker.
Alex Balakian.
Can I get that camera, please? The consultant in the tailored suit was able to get the camera facing him, so I'd like the same treatment, please.
Mr. Balekian, your time will begin right now as you start speaking, so you can either talk to us about what the camera angles are, or you can get your point across.
Yes,
I can assure you your First Amendment rights are not being infringed.
Right, so I would like equal treatment as the consultant got. So I am here emphatically against this city council wasting our money There are several people here who are furious as to having to pay thousands of dollars. And we are here. We just heard from Laura Freeman, who doesn't even have the decency to show up. We are discussing here a $150,000 consulting fee to come into alignment with a law that she passed, right? These consultants are going to tell us what we need to do to follow her law. So she is raising our costs. This is $150,000 that's going to be absorbed by the GWP fund. Doesn't even have the decency to come over here. I live one street over from her. I saw my house behind her head. Okay, I came down here. She didn't even have the decency. Why? Because we called people who are hurting. Okay, she is touting her laws. People here are hurting. Okay, they're paying thousands of dollars that they cannot afford. They have overbilled $10 million over the last 10 years that the city is refusing to give them a refund. And what do we get from you? We get millions of dollars on bike lanes in dry riverbeds. That is what we get from you. Are you tone deaf or are you intentionally sadistic? Okay, this is untenable. Your climate sustainability dream has become our unsustainable nightmare. And you all need to stop. We are watching the votes that you're going to give here. We don't need to spend an additional $200,000 on recycling consultants and give them an extra year when the $250,000 that we initially gave them last year did not result in a fruitful report. We are sick of all of this, okay? We are not going to lie down any longer. So I am talking here. That gentleman wanted to talk about his electricity bills. They are directly tied into this $150,000 consulting fee. It's going to raise our rates, and nobody is talking about that. The person who's responsible for this consulting arrangement is not here to talk to her constituents who are feeling the pain. How dare you all do this? How dare you all abscond like cockroaches in the light when people want you to be accountable to them? Okay? So yes, I'm exercising my First Amendment right. I think people should be able to look at me, so I talk to them. So I say that I am here advocating for you because clearly the majority of you here are not advocating for the people that you are meant to serve. You are not public servants, you are public sadists. We are watching, okay, whether it's your re-election bid in 2026, Dan, or whether it's sooner because we get enough signatures to do a recall, Artie, okay? We are all watching to see how you vote on these. No on the 150,000, no on the extra 200,000. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Tuktalian, can you please respond to some of the concerns that were raised by the speakers about the rates, and perhaps a brief explanation is in order about how the utility functions?
Certainly. That explanation really doesn't have much to do with this specific item, but I'd be happy to address some of the concerns from the last 2 or 3 speakers. It's really important to identify where the utilities' overall costs essentially come from. Primarily, it's through the maintenance of the infrastructure, through the development of new infrastructure as part of the distribution system, as well as to cover debt service for the various different bonds and overall costs of doing business. In order to cover some of those expenses, this city council painstakingly had conversations back in 2023 and ultimately adopted a 2.5-year rate plan to make up the differences in the costs that needed to be paid out. It's really important to take a pause there before I go any further and clearly state that under Propositions 26 and Prop 218, the city cannot charge more than the reasonable cost of providing a service. So there is no profit, so to speak, being made off of the sale of electricity here. Going back to the 2.5-year rate plan that we talked about, that plan was approved in 2023. The first set of rates went into effect January of 2024. The second went into effect 6 months later in July of 2024. So within a 6-month period, there were 2 rate increases that were implemented. The average increases were about 14.8% for the first one and about 11.3% for the second one. That
occurred those numbers? That was pretty fast.
On average, on the residential side, it was, I'm sorry, I think it was across the entire plan. It was about 14.8% in the first year, 11.3% in the second year, and 11.3%. If I can finish, thank you.
We understand.
So we had 2 rate increases that went into effect. That was immediately followed by one of the hottest summers that I can recall, and I think people around this room can recall as well. The September bill that people are receiving at home essentially represent the billing cycle for July of 2024 and August of 2024. Some of the hottest days. And these were days where we had heat not only during the day, but during the night, where people were running their air conditioning systems 24 hours a day. In fact, we hit a new peak on our electric usage, whereas it used to be somewhere in the low 341, 342, somewhere in that range megawatts. We hit a 349 megawatt peak. It's really important to note at this point that that 349 was only 349 because we had sustained outages. Had we not had power outages for extended periods of time, our estimates have us at somewhere in that 353 megawatt range. Why is all of this important? The September bill is representing extremely high usage by people in the city of Glendale, including myself who lives here in this community, as well as new rates that went into effect. So you can expect that your September bill, and for those who haven't received their September bill because they're on the October cycle, you can expect that next month's bill for those people who are going to see their August and September is going to be high. However, that will go back down as our usage decreases.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Najarian, and I'd like to ask folks from the audience, I understand if maybe you are not satisfied with an answer that you're receiving, but if you are patient and if you're respectful of this forum, we can ask staff to approach you and talk to you outside of the chambers so you can get more specific answers. Unfortunately, we have a full agenda in front of us, and we're going to have to go through a number of issues, so we'll try to get through it as quickly as possible. But we cannot have people from the audience calling out as a call and response. That is not, unfortunately, this is not neither the place nor the forum to do that. Councilmember Najarian.
So, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate your remarks, and I think it's fair to say that everyone on the city council wants to make this whole rate system as clear as possible. I would like to ask that I guess our process is we place on an agenda the consideration of a more robust explanation of what you were just talking about. The rate setting, our costs, the cost drivers, usage, and all that, so we can all sit down
I would support that.
and get that. So
I think
it's a little
that's fair.
difficult during these small little pieces of our discussion to
I
get
agree.
into.
I agree.
suggestion.
Councilmember Brotman, did you have a comment?
I was just going to ask Mr. Tokhtalian if you could just maybe explain that costs that we incur on the water side have nothing to do with our rate setting on the electric side, because I think there may be some misunderstanding, or any other costs that we incur as a city have nothing to do with electric rates, which are purely based on the cost of providing that electric service. Maybe you could elaborate on that a little?
Thank you. That's entirely accurate. When we set rates for GWP, there's two separate sets of rates. There's the water rates, and then there's the electric rates. Under Prop 26, under Proposition 218, we have to perform a cost of service analysis. And essentially what the cost of service analysis does is take into consideration all of the costs incurred by the organization providing that service, and then that's what you can legally pass along to the consumer. And that's what I meant earlier where I said the cost of providing the service can't exceed, the cost of the consumer can't exceed the cost of providing the service. So the water side is different, the electric side is different. That's why initially I said this particular item, 4C, has nothing to do with electric rates.
All right, now we have, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Garpetian, and then I'll entertain a motion on the item before us.
I have a couple of questions from staff first. So you mentioned that most of this report is going to be for dedicated irrigation meters.
Correct.
For larger facilities like parks and colleges and schools and what have you. Aren't they using the gray water at this time? Aren't we using our recycled water in many of these sites?
Right, no, and great point. But not all of our facilities utilize our purple pipe or our recycled water. For example, Vertigo Park is an example of a large landscape facility that's currently on potable water for irrigation. As part of our water master plan, which we'll be bringing forward to your council next month, the plan is to expand recycled water to some of those large landscapes.
Right, and you mentioned that this is because of the impacts of climate change to address it, or drought. and how to calculate, have a meter that calculates the fresh water as well as irrigation water. Those are going to be for the residential users as well, to have dual meters?
That is something that's being developed by the state. We're actively monitoring that, but the state will be determining as far as having a separate meter both for residential, for irrigation versus actual potable water usage. Certainly for those commercial, industrial, and landscapes as well.
Right, and are we meeting the state goals, not our goals, because we can't have any goals.
Right.
The state sets everything at these days. Are we meeting our 55 gallon per capita per day until 2025?
Currently, we are.
Okay.
But that is not official. And when I say not official, that is the reason why we're hiring Eagle Area to go through that process, make it official so that we can start reporting that to the state. But based off all consumptions that we've calculated internally, we are meeting that 55 GPCD.
Got it. Okay, that's all I have for staff. Just want to make a few comments. As far as, one last question. Did we have any rate increases on water side?
No, we haven't had a rate increase since, I believe, 2018. But that is forthcoming. We will be undertaking a COSA
I asked the wrong
2024.
Okay, thank you so much. One last question, I'm sorry. So I think when you have this report, basically this will become a base on crafting policies, right? Will become a base to calculate and the rates in the future. Am I correct?
Somewhat, yes. This will be taken into account when we're developing our COSA.
Right. Okay. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. So I think we are, in general. First of all, I want to set the record straight. I was not here in 2023. Any of the increases that we had, I was totally against all of them. And there is another rate increase coming, although it's not part of this thing, in July of 2025, right? Because the last rate increase on electric side, basically. And I brought my own water and power bills. We feel that they're all interconnected because it comes in one bill, right? Water, power, sewage, and everything else, the trash fees and everything. So because it comes in one bill, we always feel when there's an increase, everything has gone up at the same time. But in general, I think we have to just take a step back, and I think the state needs to do the same thing as well, and look at the biggest issue that we have with water usage. Over 80% of the water in California is being used by farmers, by farming industry. And in last at least 2-3 decades, I don't think state spent enough money on improving their irrigation systems. That's why we have a lot of waste in that section. Also, the other big users are recreational, golf courses and what have you. Consumers, homeowners, or people who, all of us together, we are 8 to 10% of water consumption. And all the pressure is on us in general. And when you see these fees increase, some of it is because of the wrong decisions that was made. They have to increase fees in order to compensate somewhere else. So it's not one or the other. I think just because this is going to be another document that we will base this document to increase rates or craft new rates, I'm not for this at all. The rates and I also look at my water rates, because as far as conservation goes, we are still on the drought phase, right? Number 3, is it the 3rd drought phase, which is the most restrictive one? And I think we did save a lot of water. I was on MWD in 2019. The amount of water that they purchased on cubic acre feet went down almost by half at that time. So Glendale has done that. We are meeting our required numbers, which is 55 gallon a day per person per day. That is until 2025, and that is a very little amount. I mean, I'm looking at my bill and the amount of water we use. As far as irrigation goes as well, it's all part of it. It's very difficult to meet that requirement, and you're on the tier 1. Yeah, there are 3 tiers. If you fall under the 3rd tier, which my family always does, God be with you. It's the highest or most expensive one. So I don't know where we're going with this report. I'm not very clear as to why this. And the other question is this necessary? Is this mandated to do this report or not? If it's because it's too much, in a way, it's too much government in our lives. You know, how much water to use, what kind of a car to drive, how many miles you can drive. It's coming. Vehicle miles traveled. They're going to put a tax on that too. Where can you drive? So I think we need to understand where this is going so we can make the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. Garpetian. Let's allow staff to give a response to your questions.
So yes, it is something that's mandated that we have to report to the state every year.
But is there a way to, how did we report to the state? Because this is not something that it came out, it's nothing new.
Right.
How did we report to the state in the past?
Well,
like last year, the year before?
Right, so this is something that we have to start reporting beginning 2026, 2027. We have to make it official. This is specific for CII, what is known as commercial, industrial, and institution. We have been reporting our water loss, our indoor and outdoor residential, but not for CII. So that is something that we have to start reporting in 2026. And this will help us do the analysis to get that information.
Is that clear, Mr. Garpetian?
Yeah, but we cannot do it ourselves. GWP.
We don't have the internal resources. We have to take aerial surveys. There's a number of complex technical things that we have to do, including outreach. And this Eagle area, they're specialized and they have specific expertise in this area for this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I hope that's clear as to the separation between the residential and the commercial and industrial. Is there a motion on this item?
Mayor Pro
Move the
Tem,
item.
I do have that one card.
There was one card that came
Yes.
in right under the.
Right under, yes.
Done. All right, so let's have that last speaker come up, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Mike Mohill?
Good evening, council members again. Councilman, or Mayor Pro Tem Artie Kasakian, who decided to move the cameras of the speakers to the rear? We never had that before. Was that a decision by the mayor and the city manager? Who made that decision?
Mr. Mohill, I've allowed you to, please stop the speaker's time. I've allowed you to speak on this item even after we had all the speakers already.
Right now, what's brought up, because of the Green New Deal. We got new stuff going on at Grayson, and we have to pay for it. We got bonds. And someone's going to have to pay the bonds, and that's the ratepayers. We don't need a Green New Deal, Councilman Dan Brotman. Okay? And as far as we have a drought fee going on in the city of Glendale. Why a drought fee? We have tremendous amount of rain flooding the streets, and yet we have a drought fee in the city of Glendale. Why do we need to have a drought fee? Why are you trying to discourage people from watering their lawns? And I know I'm rambling, but you know what? There's a lot of angry people in the viewing audience. And you won't let them see the face of the speakers from now on. Thank you. Who made that decision again? Councilman Artie Kasakian. But getting back to the bonds, this is all about bonds. We're going to have some more bond debt, and it's going to be paid electrically over the next several years. So, ladies and gentlemen in the viewing audience, hold your heat, or what do you want to call it? It's going to be a bumpy road. You're going to have to stop using your AC. Open up your windows and yell out and say, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going to take it anymore. Does that line sound familiar from a movie back in the, 90s? People are angry in this room. and they have to look at the 5 council people, or maybe only 4 in this case. I don't think Mr. Garpetian was involved with this. But we have people who voted for this, and you know, they're going to be up for re-election. People in the viewing audience, remember who raised your electric rates and your water, etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the item before us is 4C. Who would?
I will move the item.
Okay, and who would like to second that? Okay, if there's no willingness from anyone, I can pass the gavel and make the second on this item. Is that correct, Mr. Najarian, Mr. Garpetian? I'm assuming both of you shaking your heads, so I'll make the second. May we have roll call on the item?
Councilman Brotman?
Yes.
Garpetian? No. Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
No.
Okay, so the item does not pass. It ends in a tie, which means it will be carried over until we have a full city council. Next item is 4D. May we have 4D read into the record?
Public Works regarding authorizing an amendment to the professional service agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated to develop the 2025-2045 Recycling Center Master Plan and to provide additional as-needed consulting services. One, motion authorizing the city manager or their designee to approve an amendment to PSA 8002354 with HDR Engineering Incorporated to develop the 2025-2045 Glendale Recycling Center Master Plan, increasing the agreement amount by $200,000 to $471,052 and extending the agreement duration to March 31st, 2026 to provide additional as-needed consulting services related to implementation of the master plan based on City Council direction.
All right, Mr. Tuktalian, please give us a brief synopsis of this.
Thank you again. I'm actually going to call Dan Hargrove, our Assistant Director of Public Works, and ask that he not only provide a synopsis of this particular item, but also a little brief on what the recycling center is, where it's located, and what the purpose of it is as it stands today.
Mr. Hargrove.
Certainly. Good evening, council members. Dan Hargrove, Assistant Director of Public Works. The item, the recycling center has been in place since 2006. It consists of a buyback center for the public to take in recyclables, as well as a MRF, a materials recovery facility, to handle recycling commodities and process them and sell them. And so since 2006, there's been a great deal of change in the not just the recycling area, but also in all other areas of solid waste. Council is very familiar with SB 1383, resulting in our organics diversion. And also in the city of Glendale, we are looking at the imminent closure of Shoal landfill, so we need to also consider refuse. So in lieu of the time passed and the changes that have been made that have occurred in the industry, in the state, we pursued a master plan effort. Council awarded a contract to develop a master plan to HDR in October of last year. They are nearly complete with that work. It's pretty substantial, as we expected it would be, but it's very, very thorough. They did a fantastic job in terms of the depth of the technical work that they did. But in seeing the substantial potential changes, we saw the need for them to continue on with us in terms of the implementation process involved for the master plan, which the council will be hearing in the next month or so. So the item before you is to approve the additional time as needed basis. It's based upon what the council decides to do with the recycling center and the other solid waste commodities, organics and refuse, in the next 20 years. And this would give us an opportunity to have a very in-depth follow-through in terms of the implementation process.
Was this pulled by Councilmember Garpetian?
Just a few questions, just clarification questions. So in November 2023, when this contract was awarded, they were going to prepare a plan until when? 2045?
Yeah, it's basically the outlook for solid waste commodities, including, of course, recycling and the use of the recycling center from 2025 through 2045, so 20 years.
And this 200,000 is like a standby funds that we need in case if we ask them to do more work? Because it says potential additional as-needed services, which was to interview public-private partnership opportunities, RFP process, to come up with the RFP language and interview the people who respond to RFPs and so on and so forth. The selection process. So this is mostly for these services, additional services as needed basis that we have here?
Yeah, this will be for the implementation. The plan is the first part was the development of the plan. It's a very substantial document. These are very significant choices that the council will be making in terms of the future of our solid waste and the recycling center, which is a very valuable asset to the city for a number of reasons. And so what the additional 2,000 is to basically 200,000. Yes, 200,000 is to support the implementation that the council selects. So based upon what the council selects, it may be a range of additional works that's necessary in terms of developing an RFP, working with working out in the market and seeing what who would be interested in terms of participating in whatever the council decision is, and then helping to not only develop the RFP, put it out there, review it from a technical and a financial standpoint as well, depending again which direction the council chooses to go. So there's a substantial workload involved in the implementation process.
Right. And who's operating the facility at this time?
Currently, it's operated by Allen Company. They have been
Allen Company.
Allen Company. They've been our operators since the recycling center opened. We've extended their contract through the next 2 years, just for the purpose of getting through this master plan process, that we could make some decisions in terms of the future and which way we go. So the council extended their contract last year, and so earlier this year.
Yeah, and I went through this 2-page or 3-page report. It says, due to the recent collapse of the global recycling market, I mean, we all know that it went down big time. And also it says statewide numerous recycling centers have either closed or enacted substantial limits on the materials that they're taking in. So what happens to, what is going to happen with in general with this material that are being recycled if there is no basically purchaser at the end of it to purchase this? And how about our facility? Are we able to basically move all the material that we're recycling at this time, or did we reduce our recycling capacity, or what's going on with, because it's not good news. Basically maybe I'm reading this wrong, but if there's a statewide numerous recycling centers have either closed or taking less, and the market has collapsed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilmember. It is a commodity, and the main. I know Council's familiar with China's national sword policy, where they basically said they would not take our recycling. It took a big chunk out of the market, so it made it much more difficult to process. We're still collecting recyclables, we're still collecting organics now, we're collecting refuse, but we need to be able to process them. And so we moved essentially from something that was a movable commodity to something that we needed to pay for to process. And so part of this master plan review is to say, what's the most cost-effective way? What is the best way to proceed in terms of handling that commodity, recycling, as well as the other commodities, refuse and organics?
So we are paying for
yes
our waste to be the recycling the items that are recyclable to be recycled, basically.
Yes, we're paying for the processing of recycling. We're paying for the processing of organics as well, and the tipping fees for the landfill.
I'm okay with it. So in the future, when these items come back, I would like to have a report as to what the city's cost is on paying for all these services.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions or comments, would you?
Quick one.
Please.
I was just going to say, I think you explained this in the briefing. You're really, at this point, just trying to get ahead of the curve so that when council does make a decision on the future for the recycling center, you can then go ahead, issue, get those RFPs out and get the process going, because I know it's complicated, and I know the Allen Company's contract is probably only another year and change. So that's right, isn't it? That's what you're trying to do
That
here.
is correct, Councilman Brotman. Yes, it's where this does enable us to get a leg up on the next step in the process to kind of beat the clock in terms of the timing that we have remaining in the contract.
Right, and I appreciate that. I think that's good planning. And the other thing I just wanted to say on the recycling market is, yes, the recycling market collapse has definitely affected us. We used to, as you know, we used to get paid for the recycling product. Now we pay. And it's one of the reasons, and this is a plug I just want to put in, it's one of the reasons I've been pushing for us to reduce single-use plastics, because something like only 9% of plastics in California actually get recycled. Most of them end in landfills, which is the best place for them to end. In many cases, they end up in rivers and streams and in the ocean. So that's the problem is, recycling was a little bit of a myth. China kind of bailed us out for a long time by taking it. They're not anymore. And so here we are. I just wanted to kind of get that out there.
Appreciate it.
We have no other questions or comments, and
I
there are
move the
no
item.
cards. Thank you. It was moved by
Second.
Councilmember Garpetian and seconded by Councilmember Brotman. May we have roll call on
Councilmember
item
Brotman?
4?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Asadurian? And Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. Can you please read 4F into the record?
4F is management services regarding amendment to professional services agreement with Rincon Consulting Incorporated. One, motion authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter into an amendment of the existing professional service agreement with Rincon Consultant Incorporated to extend the PSA until March 2025 in order to complete the preparation of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, and to add $86,448 to the PSA for a revised total not to exceed contact amount of $542,034. And 2 is resolution of appropriation in the amount of $86,448.
All right, Mr. Tuktalian, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian. Before we turn this over to council members for their comments, I just want to correct one thing on the agenda. This item does have two separate sections to it. At F1 is the motion asking council to authorize the city manager to amend the agreement and increase it by $86,000. The second item is a resolution of appropriation asking council to add additional money in the city manager's budget to cover this. I want to correct this. We are not asking for the second piece for an appropriation of $86,000. We will be able to absorb that in the department's budget. So if this council wishes to proceed with this item, I would ask that you only entertain F1.
So let me-
Councilmember Najarian, go
Yeah,
ahead.
let me jump in. I don't really need a report. The fact is that we had entered into a contract, professional service agreement with this firm in September of 2022 with a not-to-exceed price of $320,000 to develop the climate action plan. And the actual subject of the work that they were doing is not so relevant. But what is relevant to me is that in the course of this consultant doing their work, the Sustainability Commission somehow got a hold of it and began directing our staff and the consultant to do extra work and to burn through the contract money that we had set aside. I feel that that's totally inappropriate for a commission to take it upon themselves to demand additional work without council being made aware of it, of the scope of the additional work and the amount of money that that additional work is going to cost. Completely, this is the tail wagging the dog sort of thing. The commission is there for advice for us, to give us recommendations, but in no way in their scope of authorization do they get to direct through our staff, the consultant, to do extra work that they want to do. Completely inappropriate. I don't ever want to see this happening again. I want more safeguards on not just the Sustainability Commission, but any commission that has this sort of, belief that they have the power to make this direction without council, the policymakers, the elected policymakers, the ones that crunch the budget every year to know what's going on. And that's my point, and that's why I won't be supporting this. It's not about the climate, it's not about the particular commission, it's the process that I think is a mistake that we should not let happen again.
Okay, Councilmember Garpetian, and then Councilmember Brotman.
Yes, this item was approved in September of 2022. I was not here when what we call CAP. What does it stand for?
Climate Action Plan.
Climate Action,
Okay.
Adaptation Action Plan. And at the briefing, I asked if this is something that is mandated by the state, or it's a requirement. I was told it's not. And I read through most of it. This is a two parts, almost 700 plus pages of document that the consultant worked on. And as you can see, I have so many questions, and I marked every other page. And I asked for a study session, but it was done in a different way. So since I was not here and I didn't vote for it in the beginning, and if it comes back, if this was before us today, I would have voted against it. So with that, I'm not going to support this item tonight. It's not just about that $86,000. In total, we're spending $540,000. And this will become a document. When it says a plan, when you approve a plan, when you approve a budget, when the plan comes back, you can't say, I'm not approving the plan because you approved a $500,000 budget. But when the plan is approved, then based on plan, many policies are going to be made that I may not like, but they say, oh, you approved the plan already, so you have to follow the plan and approve the policies, basically. So this is what the issue that I have with this document. So therefore, I'm not supporting, I'm going to vote against this item.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, two things. First, I know I did ask this question in the briefing, and maybe staff can answer it. I think that the majority of the cost overrun was because of just how complex this issue is. Not one issue, but the issues that this raised are, and that it required a lot more work among staff. The different departments had questions that the consultant had to answer. I was told that that was the majority of what was driving the cost increase. Can you respond to that?
Absolutely can, Councilmember Brotman. That's accurate. There's a large component of this particular increase attributed directly towards back and forth between the consultants and our individual department staff members. As Councilmember Karpetian illustrated, it's a complex document. It's over 700 pages, if I'm not mistaken, and there's a number of new type measures that aren't really occurring elsewhere. This is the first time that our staff is having an opportunity to see what these measures are, and in terms of trying to make this a workable document, something that can be considered for implementation, portions of it at least. Down the road, there was quite a bit of engagement with our individual departments and the consultant to rework and refine the measures in a manner that we can utilize down the road.
Right. And what was, as far as the Sustainability Commission directing work, how much of the cost increase was things that they specifically asked that the consultant wasn't originally planning to do? Are you able to pinpoint that?
I am not the project manager on this particular item. Our sustainability officer, David Jones, is. However, I can say that there was a component of Sustainability Commission directives or an interest in learning more. There was from the consultants. The consultants were originally anticipated to have a certain number of virtual meetings. That number increased. And that held true for City Council as well. There was supposed to be a certain number of virtual meetings with City Council. but shorter in duration. But what we ultimately experienced was a larger number of in-person meetings and a few more yet to come, based on the level of engagement that I'm hearing here at the council dais from one of the council members, at least, wishing to learn more from the consultants in greater depth in terms of what this plan is. That's been built into this scope of work.
So the Sustainability Commission was looking to learn more. Were they actually directing the consultant to do additional work that was beyond the scope of work of the project?
I took the comments to mean that the Sustainability Commission asked for additional information and additional feedback, maybe some additional legwork that wasn't part of the original scope as it was identified.
Okay. And just the other thing I wanted to say is, we had a Greener Glendale plan that was approved, I think, in 2012. It's been a long time. A lot has changed in the world, and all leading cities in California are planning for this future that we're facing of a hotter, drier, more fire-prone climate. I want to be a leading city, and I think we need to be preparing for that future and not just close our eyes to it. So I do support the work of this Climate Action Adaptation Plan, and I support this increase if that's what it takes to make sure that we have a plan in the end that is fully robust and all the questions are answered. So I will move the item.
Okay, thank you. It's moved by Councilmember Brotman, and we do have a card on this item. Mr. Mohill, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. Sorry to see you go, Councilman Dan Brotman. This is addressed to you. Climate action plan proposed by woke Laura Freeman and woke Dan Brotman will have a negative, lasting impact in Glendale, state of California, and the nation. Solar panels are not a panacea or cure-all for our environment. In order to build and create solar panels, we need fossil fuel. Solar panels only last between 20 and 25 years, and then they need to be disposed. The panels do not last forever. Only 2 primary metals are removed from each panel. They are silver and copper. From the solar panel goes to a landfill and pollutes the groundwater and aquifers when they break down. The rest of the solar panels get dumped in the state of Nevada. The state of California subsidizes one company with taxpayers' money to remove these 2 metals. This year in Texas, a field of solar panels had a tremendous amount of hail come crashing down on them, which ended up polluting the earth and underground groundwater. To make solar panels more energy efficient, tellurium is removed from the ocean floor, a key element in cutting-edge solar technology. But here is the catch. The deposit is found at the bottom of the sea in an undisturbed part of the ocean, and experts don't know the long-lasting effect this will have on sea life. To our so-called environmentalists, Laura Freeman and Dan Brotman, many trees in our beautiful earth depend on carbon monoxide to grow. In return, these trees release oxygen, which people need to survive. Our politicians like Laura Freeman and Dan Brotman are not environmental experts by far. We do not need to fool around with Mother Nature when we really do not know the consequences of poor decisions made by our politicians. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so on the item as to what I do agree with Councilmember Najarian in the concept and idea that he put forth, or his suggestion that our commissions, whichever commission they may be, unless they've been given the authority by council to redirect funds or increase the scope of work, which will result in an additional cost to any project it may be, the approval of that, they can certainly make that recommendation and bring it back to us, but approval of any additional expenditure should be done by council. At the end of the day, we are the ones elected by the public as with the fiduciary responsibility. So, I know that, for instance, Arts and Culture Commission sometimes will make expenditures, but they are always given that authority by council to do so, and then when there are certain items that they approve, it'll still come back to us for approval. So I do agree with that in concept. However, on this item, I do want us to move forward because I think that the Climate Action Adaptation Plan is critical to communities, to our city, to regions as we prepare for and respond to the impacts of climate change. This isn't debating what the cause of climate change is. We know that climate change exists. There are differing opinions. There's, of course, scientific evidence of the increasing of the heat, and this helps reduce our vulnerability. It helps build resilience. It helps us plan for the forthcoming increased heat waves, and now we came up with a new term for these very heavy rainstorms, calling them atmospheric rivers. It helps us protect for public health as we see some vector-borne diseases increasing, and of course helping us with economic stability by making sure our facilities are operating at their highest efficiency. So I will support this if there is no second from any of my colleagues. Yes.
No, I moved the item.
You moved the item. I will pass the gavel to second it, and then I'll ask for a roll call. Go ahead, Mr. Ajemian.
Councilmember Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
No.
Najarian,
Abstain.
Mayor Asadurian, and Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes. So with the abstention, we will likely continue this until we have a full council. It passed.
Right, so abstention counts as a non-vote, it's not a no vote or yes vote, and under our procedures in our municipal code, the vote is basically 2-1, and the matter passes.
Okay. All right. With that, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Mr. Ajemian.
Our next item is number 5, City Council and staff comments.
All right. Who would like to speak first on council comments?
Nothing from me this week.
Okay, nothing. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Najarian?
I pass.
Pass.
Just a couple of quick items.
Councilmember Garpetian, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say congratulations to our police department and the Police Foundation for organizing GPD's Touch a Truck event. It's one of the most family-oriented events that I've been to. Many families come out, they see the police cars, they interact, they see the dogs, and they see the SWAT team in action. It was a great event. Weather was perfect. I think one of the positives that's left in California at these days is the weather. So also, I attended the MSPA's, Montrose Shopping Park Association's merchant appreciation event. That was great. You go hang out with merchants and find out what their issues are, what their challenges are, what their suggestions are. I think it's important for us to be engaged with them. City Hall in your neighborhood last week, we didn't have a council meeting, but we were in Glen Oaks Canyon Homeowners Association's arena, basically. We held a meeting over there. It was very successful, well attended. I think if possible, we need to do more of these because people can come in and interact with and the system was changed a little bit, so it gave public a more opportunity to interact with the council members, staff, and the management. Also, for our upcoming year, the calendar that we are going to put together, because we approve it on the beginning of our fiscal year, I suggest not to have 2 dark meetings in 1 month, because personally, for me, I'm only one council member here. You just get a little bit disconnected, if you will. You get disengaged because you have a meeting this week, and 2 weeks later you have another meeting. Then you don't have another meeting for 2 more weeks. So within 4 weeks, you have only 1 meeting in between. So that's my personal request, if possible, for upcoming year, not to have 2 dark meetings in 1 month. And lastly, for these items that were on the consent item today, the contracts that are on the consent, and some of it, and I'm sorry for staff if you ask so many different questions, because it's somewhat of an unknown, some of these issues. So the ones that are mandatory and we have to have, it's a necessity and there is no way around it, maybe we can indicate in our consent items, indicate in that item as to this is something that has to be done, for example. Something for the management to take a look at for the future agendas. With that, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very
Actually,
much.
Mayor Pro Tem, just one very quick thing from me.
Councilmember Brotman, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say in regard to last week's council in your neighborhood, I was unfortunately not able to attend, and I want to make sure that folks in Glen Oaks Canyon and elsewhere know that I had previously planned a trip to visit my daughter in Toronto, and that was done before this event was even scheduled. So I was very sorry to miss it. I heard it was great, and I'm sure I'll be at the next one in whatever neighborhood that happens to be.
All right, thank you very much, and I welcome back, actually, from Toronto. We appreciate all of the council members who were there, as well as the public. It was very well attended. I thought there were some very good discussions that happened. My only request and suggestion would be, and I heard from a few folks in the community, requesting that we have the next one in Maple Park at the community center, something perhaps to serve the southern portion of our city. So that would be my ask. Other than that, I unfortunately didn't make it to as many events this weekend. Had a family wedding to go to. So congratulations to the newlyweds. Congratulations, Garrett and Maddie. Many blessings. May you grow old on the same pillow, as we say in Armenian. And with that, let's move on to the public community event announcement portion. Well, is there any staff comments? Okay, there are no staff comments. And actually, before we move on to the community event announcements, Mr. Ajemian, there is an event taking place tomorrow. I think it may be up on the screen if we can just put it up. There is an event organized by the city to provide information, comprehensive overview to learn about key components of Glendale's rental rights program. This is an interactive Q&A session. If you have questions about housing, you can have them answered by the housing experts and community leaders. Limited seating is available. You can go to glendalerentalrights.com, and this is open to everyone from landlords to tenants to answer any questions they may have about the rules and laws that we have here in Glendale as they pertain to rents and leasing properties. Okay, with that, let's move on to the community event announcements under item 6, and I will respect our mayor's policy, so we'll permit speakers wishing to speak under general oral communications, subject to a 3-minute time limit, and discussion is limited to items not on the agenda. Who do we have? Do we have any cards for this, Mr.
Mayor,
Attorney?
we have 5 cards. The first one is Tamara Movsesian.
Ms. Movsesian will have 6 minutes because she has an interpreter who she will be using. Please let Ms. Movsesian know that she'll be able to speak for 3 minutes, with 3 minutes allowed for translation. Please.
Ես է պարտ եմ համարում Գլեդելի բնակիչներին հայտնելու, որ Գլեդել Community College-ի բորդի անդամները ձեր քվեարկության են դրել 600 միլիոն, դա կատակ չի 600 միլիոնը, քվեարկության, եթե դուք քվեարկեք կողմ այդ որոշմանը, որ 600 միլիոն Գլեդել Community College-ի բորդի անդամները իրավունք ունեն միայն դա օգտագործելու։ Իրանցից բացի ոչ ոք իրավունք չունի օգտագործելու։ Այս բանը շատ ուշադիր կարդացեք։ Եղավ։ Բայց հետո, միանգամից, բայց հետո ի նկատի ունեցեք, որ այս պարտքը մինչև 2066 թիվը պետք է վճարվի property tax մուծողների կողմից, այսինքն վճարելու են ձեր երեխաները, ձեր թոռները, ոչ ես եմ այդ ժամանակ սաղը լինելու, ոչ էլ բորդի հիմիկվա անդամները, բոլորս եմ մեռած ենք լինելու, բայց երեխեքը մեր թոռները այդ փողը պետք է կոպեկ տան, բորդի անդամները Glendale Community College-ի շատ ագահ են, իրենք հենց հիմա 400 միլիոնի դեր բոնդ ունեն, որ վճարում են, 400 միլիոնի բորդից հետո 600 միլիոնը ոնց են վճարելու երեխեքը ու թոռները։ Դրանից բացի
Դիգի Մովսեսյան թող թարգմանի, որ հասկանա։
միանգամից կթարգմանի ինքը։ Իզուր րոպե մի կորցնի։ Հետո Glendale Police-ը ձրի նվերատվել Glendale Community College-ին լաբորատորիայի սարքեր։ Շատ ինձ հետաքրքիր է ինձ։ Ոնց են օգտագործելու, ով է օգտագործելու այդ սարքերը, որը տեղափոխման համար պետք է վճարվի $15,000։ Glendale College-ի ուսանողները վերջի 15 տարում 10-ից 15,000-ով պակասել են։ Ուսանող չկա, ով է օգտագործելու այս ապարատուրան։ Թարգմանու։ Իրան ավելի հեշտ ասեց։ Մի պակասացնի արամ րոպեները, կանգնացրու։
Dear council members, it is important that Glendale residents know that it is up for, right now on the ballot is up for election, that $600 million bond for Glendale Community College Board. That bond is available for all the board members to spend the money now, but the property taxpayers will pay the fees up until 2066. Neither I or the board members will be alive by 2066, but our children and grandchildren will be required to pay for this bond. The total bond debt will rise up to more than $1.5 billion. The college board members had a previous $400 million bond that has not been fully paid yet and are requesting an additional $600 million. What's the reason for the college board members, and why can't they stop requesting additional funding? The police department has donated a specific apparatus to the college, but $15,000 is required to relocate that apparatus. Who's going to use the apparatus if the college enrollment rate is decreasing by about $10,000 to $15,000 in the past 10 to 15 years? Thank you. No, took our 10.
Huh?
You have a minute and 30 seconds.
Ես 20 վարկյան ունեի, իսկ ինքը
Ճիշտ ես։ Շարունակի, մի րոպե, 30
մի
սեկունդ։
րոպե 30 վարկյան էլ ինքը ունի։
Այո։
Հա։ Այս հարցի պետք է շատ ուշադիր մոտենալ։ Դուք բոլորդ պետք է մտածեք դրա մասին։ Ոչ ոք չպետք է քվեարկի, այո, բոլորդ պետք է քվեարկեք ոչ, որովհետև այդ բորդի անդամները Glendale Community College-ի ագահ են, անկուշտ են, ինչ էլ տակ չեն կշտանա։
Yes, we have 1 minute left.
You all need to think about this decision. Everyone needs to vote. No one needs to vote yes. Everyone needs to vote no on this matter. When the board members are extremely needy when it comes to this subject, and they will never stop.
Okay.
Ապրես, շնորհակալություն։
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, next speaker.
Next speaker is Daniel Dessler. Daniel?
I believe Mr. Dessler was here and he is no longer in the chambers. Let's go on to the next speaker.
Next speaker is Ray Sheldon. Ray?
Sheldon, you'll have 3 minutes.
Artie, you really should know better. Climate change is a complete hoax. There's not an ounce of scientific evidence for it. There are a lot of computer models that are made by consultants who make their living off of government. What America needs is we need more power plants. We need more reservoirs. We need more fossil fuels. We need more landfills. The plastic came out of the ground in the form of oil, Dan, and go right back into the ground in a landfill. Jesus Christ, you people. Also, you haven't taken to task Susie, who continues to, I should back up and say, I want to acknowledge that we do not stand on the land of any so-called Tongva people. There were Paleolithic primitives here without toilet paper, menstrual pads, deodorant, soap, shampoo, toothpaste, insect repellent, sunscreen, penicillin. These Stone Age people had no language. They did not live in harmony with their neighbors or nature. Nature crushed them. They were constantly at war with other local tribes. They did not own the land. They did not even know what land ownership was. The so-called Tongva are descended from Uto-Aztecian-speaking peoples who originated in what is Nevada. They were not even the indigenous people. They kicked out the Hukan-speaking inhabitants, and the word Tongva was coined by a white person in 1905. You should check out the Smithsonian Institute, who has documentation on this. It's totally phony worship of the primitive. These land acknowledgments are nothing but phony, moral, performative displays of woke ideology, which stem from a settler colonial theory. It's simply to try to shame and blame the rest of us to feel guilty for living a healthy, clean life with technology, cleanliness, with our food wrapped in clean plastics, our children with clean plastic diapers, with the glasses you're wearing made out of plastic, Dan. All Susie wants to do is reject the modern world of reason, science, technology. And when you let her do this, you spit in the face of Americans and the people of Glendale. You really need to wake up.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Yeva Porosyan. Yeva? Yeva, you have 3 minutes.
Honorable council members and esteemed guests, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. We're living in an interesting, complex time, facing challenges on both personal and business levels. However, I'm staying positive and finding beauty in the world around us. And therefore, I want to introduce myself. My name is Yeva Porosyan. I am the co-founder of Eridapol, an award-winning jewelry brand with a deep passion for merging art and nature in every piece we create. Today, I'm excited to share that we have opened our beautiful boutique house of Eridapol right here in Glendale. Not sure the timing is right, but we did it anyway, hoping for the best. Since the beginning, we've always believed that every collection should tell a story, whether it's inspired by beauty of nature, the intricacies of art, or the elegance found every day in every moment. Our boutique embodies this philosophy and continues the legacy of Eridapol by offering a carefully curated selection of fine jewelry, unique accessories, and special gifts. We cater to a variety of tastes with a wide range of styles and price points, ensuring that there is something for everyone to enjoy. Additionally, we offer special orders to accommodate our clients' unique preferences, allowing for personalized and custom-designed pieces. House of Eridapol small business is more than just a retail space. It's a place where stories come to life, where each piece invites guests to connect with artistry behind the design. We're committed to continuing to Glendale's cultural vibrancy, but not only offering exceptional products, but also by engaging the community in meaningful ways. To that end, we will be organizing a series of events where community members can explore a variety of subjects, from art and design to craftsmanship and lifestyle. These events will be opportunities to connect, learn, and celebrate the creativity that enriches our city. I warmly invite you to all to our grand opening celebration on November 15th, where we will gather for an evening of refreshments, drinks, and a chance to explore the boutique's unique offerings. We would be truly honored to have all of you join us for this special occasion. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to welcome you to the House of Irritable.
Thank you very much, Eva, and thank you for patiently waiting to be able to make that
I
important
understand there are so many issues, and hey, our heart is there. We all live in the same environment, and I really want the world to be better. So let's all work together and support. We can do whatever we can. As a small business owners, we're ready to support City of Glendale in any way we can.
We're glad and proud to have another wonderful business in Glendale. Could you please leave the information about the opening with staff so they can pass it along to council members?
And
so they
we're
can
working
attend?
with Vlad and Marie already to put that on your calendars. So
Perfect.
it's all
Thank you very much.
taken care of, and I'll leave some flyers here just in
Thank you
case
so
someone
much.
wants to do that.
Thank you, and welcome to City Hall again.
This is
Next-
important.
Next speaker?
Next speaker is Mike Mohill. Mike, you have 3 minutes.
Evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. Since when did oral communication get shrunk from 5 minutes to 3 minutes? When did that become? Is that, huh?
I'm sorry, please stop Mr. Mohill's time. There will still be a 5-minute portion. It's at the conclusion of meetings, as it has been for however
Oh, so
many
this
meetings
is-
we've been
this
having.
is-
This is the shortened 3-minute portion, but if you speak now, you will not be able to speak at the 5-minute
So this is when we have
portion.
community announcements portion? I mean, they changed the system? I mean, we had all these consent items and everything else before this, and now?
It's
Okay.
pretty much always been like this. It just.
This doesn't,
Still at the beginning of our meeting.
yeah.
Yeah. So would you like to
No, I
speak
can do
now?
this- I can do this in 3 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
So please resume the timer.
All right, okay. I was very disappointed when candidate for Congress of the United States Area 30, Alex Balikin, came here, and he wanted to speak about Laura Freeman on her campaign announcement coming here, telling us what's going on in the state of California. And you wouldn't have his face facing the camera. That's a disservice to him and every other speaker who's coming before the city council today. Unfortunately, I've noticed that this nice lady who came before me, I really couldn't understand her. And I'm sitting right behind her. But you know, if I could see her face, I could see her words, maybe I could read lips, but you can communicate much better to the viewing audience when you can see the speaker's face. Having the rear of the speaker's back, that's the way the mayor decides to silence her critics. Silence her critics. That's what this is all about. It doesn't have to be this way. Sure, you can have the camera go back and forth. It is nice to see the council people chewing gum, turning their back on the speakers, or leaving the room to go, I don't know, do something back there. Maybe take a phone call. That's what having the speaker right now, the viewing audience is seeing the council people. Maybe you'll be on better behavior, because in the past you look like a bunch of fools, some of you. This is disgusting. This is a new Glendale City Council and the new mayor. She's not my mayor. The mayor should be Councilman Ara Najarian. Ray Sheldon came here and told you all that the GUSD scam against him was a phony one, Dan Brotman. Okay? Silencing speakers. This is terrible. Is this going to be the new Glendale? The open voice of Glendale? Silencing the speakers that you don't like? You know, in the past, Dan Brotman had the speakers go to the end at 5-minute portion at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. No, that got back, and now we have the camera to the back. You know, in Burbank, the speakers look like this. Pasadena, in the rear, and in Los Angeles, they tilt the camera front, back, and forth. But their council chamber is 3 times the size of this chamber right now. This is not right. What should the viewing audience feel? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohill. Next speaker.
Mayor, that was the fifth speaker. The next item is the action item.
Okay, let's move on to the action item. Can you please read 8A into the record?
8A, Human Resources regarding request to dispense with competitive bidding for safety footwear and authorize a purchase order for up to 3 years for eligible employees as defined by their respective MOUs. 1, resolution to dispense with competitive bidding for safety footwear and authorize the execution of a purchase order for up to 3 years, renewable by year, to Red Wing Shoe Company for a not-to-exceed amount of $341,675.
Mr. Tuktalian, may we have a brief report, and then I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions. I trust everyone has had their briefings by staff, so hopefully we can get through this as quickly as possible.
Certainly, thank you. I'll keep this relatively brief. In our respective memorandums of understanding with our different employee associations, there is a provision for certain classifications to receive a safety boot allowance. And over the years, we've utilized the Red Wing Shoe Company to procure those boots for our employees. The boots are oftentimes very unique in that they protect against crushing events as things occur in the field. The reason why we choose to go with Red Wing shoes is because they have a variety of options in terms of how you actually purchase the shoes, whether it's their online platform or it's the boot truck that arrives on site. There's also a number of opportunities for employees to either go to a local store or even have certain services performed on those safety boots as the need arises. So this particular item is asking for a 3-year agreement, renewable for each individual year, to contract with Red Wings. We have the budget in this year's, we have the funding in this year's budget, but future funding will depend on future year budget appropriations by this council.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on this item?
No questions. I'll move the item.
Okay. Item was moved by Councilmember Brotman,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Najarian. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Asadurian, and Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. Let's have 8B read into the record.
8B, Public Works regarding appeal of Transportation and Parking Commission decision regarding installation of all-way stop controls at Adams Street and Schofield Drive intersection. Motion setting the matter for a public hearing or an alternative. 2, motion ordering the Transportation and Parking Commission to rehear the matter or in the alternative. 3, motion dismissing the appeal forthwith.
Okay, so I would like Assistant City Manager Tuktalian and our City Attorney, Mr. Garcia, to both explain what exactly we're going to be voting on today, so everyone is clear, including members of the audience. Certainly, we'll hear from people who have submitted cards to speak on this item, but I just want it to be clear what we are voting on today and what are the subsequent steps, depending on what council's decision is for the next opportunities to be heard or to have this issue deliberated on. Mr. Garcia, go ahead.
Sure. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I know that Mr. Hernandez has part of his presentation. I'll discuss it, but briefly, the item today is to consider whether or not to set a hearing on the appeal that was filed by the Director of Public Works on the TPC's action relative to this particular stop sign. So this is not a hearing. There's no evidence or testimony will be taken. But obviously, there are cards, people can speak on this item at your discretion in terms of the amount of time that you give. And then the council will have a discussion, decide whether it has sufficient substantiality for the council to set a hearing at a date certain, or the council, as Mr. Hernandez will go, can remand it back to the TPC, or can deny the request for an appeal. Those are the 3 options. And I know.
And the appeal was filed by our Public Works Department.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Tuktalian, do you have anything else to add to that? And Mr. Hernandez, the floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Pro Temp and members of the City Council. As outlined by our City Attorney, I may be repeating some of the stuff that was the basis of my presentation. So I'll go through this as quickly as possible without obviously just giving the information. So specifically, staff's recommendation is to pass a motion finding that the facts stated in the notice of appeal constitutes a matter of sufficient substantiality to warrant a hearing in the public's interest and set a time for that public hearing, so to a date certain. Just a little bit of background and rationale for the notice of our appeal. I'll provide information for the council's consideration. In terms of the background, this segment of Adams is between Palmer and Stanford Drive as shown in the vicinity map, as shown here. This segment of Adams is between Palmer and Stanford as shown. Go back to the... So residents of the neighborhood have expressed concerns of speeding. It's important to note that staff has attempted traffic calming measures available in the neighborhood traffic calming program. In 2022, staff installed rumble strips, but ultimately removed them due to adverse noise of vehicles over those strips. Additionally, staff explored speed humps or lumps. After consultation with the fire department, staff determined not to proceed due to the impact on emergency response. As previously mentioned, this item was presented at the July 22nd Transportation and Parking Commission and did not garner sufficient support to pass the item. 2 commissioners voted yes, 2 voted no, and 1 abstained. The appeal was submitted by me, the interim Public Works Director, for the following reasons. As was stated in the background, staff found that the corridor has excess speeds and other traffic calming measures were attempted. The recommendation action at the TPC for an all-way stop at South Adams Street and Schofield Drive satisfy all the implementation criteria of the 2023 Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program. And lastly, there are undisputed and indisputable facts, and the record of the commission belie rationales underlining the 2 no votes. Staff presented all the pertinent information for its recommendation. So the motions before you, as indicated by the city attorney, as we request the city council a motion for a date certain. We're prepared to bring this item as early as the council directs us. Alternatively, though, the city council could direct the TPC to rehear the matter or could choose to dismiss the appeal. This concludes my presentation. I or staff will be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Mr. Mayor, it's probably just worth noting, and you take this for what it is, obviously, on a remand back to TPC, whatever decision they make, that's also subsequent to, subject to a subsequent appeal. So just keep that in mind as you're making your consideration.
Okay. Any questions from council before we start hearing from the public?
I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Najarian.
Mr. Garcia, so with regard to what you just mentioned, that if it goes to TPC and there is a decision, it can be appealed by our Public Works Director?
It could be appealed by any interested person. So it could be appealed by the director.
Either way?
Either way. Or it could be appealed by a member of the public. It could be appealed by members of council.
Usually the TPC has the authority to make these traffic calming decisions, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things they can do, one of the powers we vested in them under the charter to do. In other words, if it wasn't appealed, it would be their decision would be implemented.
That's correct.
Correct.
Right.
But there was no decision, so it was a denial.
No, I mean, but
correct.
just in general.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No
Anyone else?
questions.
Okay. So let me ask a question. What would be the purpose of the public hearing? What would be the outcome? How can it go? If we were doing a choose your own adventure, what are the options before the public hearing process?
So ultimately, staff would be recommending for the installation of the always stop at Schofield and Adams.
And then the public would be able to come, because I know the meeting for this was a pretty long one. There was a lot of speakers, a lot of opinions shared from the community. The public hearing would essentially be an opportunity for the public to voice their concerns again.
That is correct. So
Okay.
we will be presenting ultimately the same presentation that we provided with some updated facts and information, but we would be ultimately presenting what we presented at the TPC meeting on July 22nd.
Okay, because essentially it could be a repeat again of similar comments, same thing, and in the words of Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again.
It's possible, yes.
Okay, all right. With that, let's go to the folks who've come here. We have 4 cards on this item. Mr. Ajemian, let's hear from the public.
Arlene Vidor? Arlene?
Let's would 2 minutes be okay for everyone? I think that should be sufficient. Let's do 2 minutes.
I'd like to beg for 3 because I timed myself to 3 thinking I was going to get 3. I can talk fast.
Well, let's
I'm
start.
I'm
let's start
representing
with,
the Adams
sure.
Hill Neighborhood Association.
Let's start with 2, and then if you need more, we'll see where we can go from there.
Well, thank you. On behalf of the Adams Hill Neighborhood Association and the signers of the official city petition, I'm advocating for the Schofield-Adams four-way stop sign to be placed. Adams Hill has advocated long and hard for traffic calming on South Adams Street, which is a leg of the Adams-York Boulevard throughway that leads from Adams Square to the 2 freeway. It's a very busy street. We first formally met with the city in November of 2021 on Zoom because of COVID to talk about this. And after some years of debate, we now have agreement with Public Works. The neighborhood and Public Works are in support of one another that a 4-way stop sign at Schofield and Adams would calm traffic for the Adams Square Mini Park, especially because there are many children in the park who cross the street. The Schofield intersection was agreed after considerable study to be the closest mid-distance cross street on Adams to our mini park, and therefore the most practical and safest place to call for cars to come to a dead stop. At 25 miles an hour, you will have to slow down to make this stop at least 1, if not 2 blocks before they reach Schofield. The neighborhood was directed by Public Works to circulate a petition on Adams Street to gain community consensus. There it is. Okay. And our AHNA president, Stephen Meek, and board member Mary Baldwin did a lot of work to gather those required signatures, and they resulted in a 76% agreement. There was one objector to this. At the Parking Transportation Commission on July 22nd, this one objecting resident living at 1255 Adams with 5 household cars that we know of at least, possibly 7, and a driveway that can accommodate at least 4 cars, was allowed to dominate the discussion well beyond the allotted time, objecting to the loss of street curb parking for his 5th car. The conduct of the commission was absolutely inappropriate in considering this matter, and also other residents have been parking and driving on Adams constantly, and there's always some curb space available. So at this point, this commission's tie decision was not reached in any way in a valid democratic manner, and I hope you agree that our collective overwhelming concern for public safety here should override the need of one resident.
Thank you, Ms. Vidor.
One
I appreciate
resident.
it. How much time was that?
That was 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
All right.
Can I just wrap it up? I was going to give you
Sure,
a
go ahead.
compliment. So the compliment is that it's really ironic that the beautiful, very much appreciated, and multifaceted traffic calming measures taken on Palmer Street has been completed, and we are still debating one single stop sign that can potentially save lives. So please do the right thing and approve
So,
it tonight.
Out of fairness now, I'm going to have to give everyone else 3 minutes. Thank you, Ms. Vidor.
Okay,
Next speaker.
good.
Next speaker is Rafik Babakhanyan. Rafik? Mayor Pro Tem, we have Mike here to translate from Armenian to English.
Right. And we are not going to take any more cards on this item. We'll hear from the folks who have already submitted.
Բարի երեկո ձեզ, խորին հարգանքներս, ներողություն եմ խնդրում, որ մայրենի լեզվով պետք է խոսեմ։ Խոսքս վերաբերվում է 1255 South Adams բնակարանի դիմաց այդ կանգառնշանի տեղադրման վերաբերյալ, որը խիստ մտահոգում է հատկապես իմ ընտանիքին, այդ շենքի բնակիչներին։ Ինչու՞։ Սայնը տեղադրելուց հետո եւ 2 parking արանքից դուրս է գալիս, հետեւաբար իմ ընտանիքս մեծ ընտանիք է, 5 մեքենա այդ բնակարանում հաշվառված, մենք ամեն առավոտ չենք կարող տեղից դուրս գալ եւ ներս մտնել։ Անհնարին է, որովհետեւ անմիջապես մի մեքենա կանգնեց ամենավատ փողոցն է Գլենդել քաղաքի մեջ, այդ Adams փողոցը։
Good evening, Council. I'm sorry that I have to speak in Armenian tonight. I'm here in regards to the property located at 1255 South Adams. specifically to the parking lot, the parking spaces in front of the property. This item concerns me and my family, especially that I have a big family. Then we have 5 cars, and if those parking spaces are lost, it's going to be extremely difficult for me and my family to go in and out of our driveway, especially if there's a car. If a car stops at that stop sign, it will make it extremely difficult.
Արդեն մի քանի տարի այդ հարցով միշտ մեզ անհանգստացրել են, դուրը ծեծել են, հարցրել են, այգուի փառքում միտինգներ են արել, մասնակցել ենք, միշտ այդ հարցը բարձրացրել ենք, դժգոհել ենք, առաջարկներ ենք արել, բայց ոչ մի բան չի ընդունել։ Վերջի անգամ հուլիսի 22-ին այս նույն դահլիճում այդ միտինգին մասնակցել ենք, հանգամանորեն խնդրել, աղաչել ենք, ցույց ենք տվել ճանապարհը ինչ կարելի անել, ոնց կարելի անել, 2 նամակ եմ թողել, խնդրելով որ գրավոր պատասխանեն, ոչ մի պատասխան չեմ ստացել, 3 զանգ եմ ստացել, հրավիրք որ գամ մասնակցեմ այս միտինգին։ Խնդրում եմ այդ հարցին նայեք լրջորեն, այդ քաղաքի ոչ մի փողոցների նման չի, այդ փողոցը չգիտես ինչի, արդեն 50 տարի այդ նույն կարգավիճակով այդ գնում է այդ շարժը, տրաֆիկը այդպես գնում է։ Ոչ մի ուղղակի շատ արագ են վարում երբեմն անկարգ վարորդները։ Սա է ամբողջ խնդիրը, ուրիշ խնդիր չկա։ Լուծում արեցին այդ փողոցի վրա այն մանր դամպինգների նման բաներ էին դրել, 10 օր չդիմացավ, հանեցին, որովհետև այդ կարգ խախտողները միշտ խախտում են։ Այնքան արագ էին գնում գալիս, այդ էլ չէր օգնում։ Նորից ժողովուրդը այդ փողոցի բնակիչները որոշ դիմեցին, հանեցին էդի։ Եկավ սիթիան, քանդեց, հավաքեց այդ բանը։
It's been a few years that I've been contacted in regards to this concern. People have knocked my doors, they have reached out to me, they have invited me to community meetings. Came to City Hall in front of the commission to present my points as well. Please take this issue seriously. This street has always had a good traffic flow for the past 50 years, with the only issue being reckless drivers. One of the solutions, which was the small bumps, was eventually removed due to the noise it created, and it didn't help with the speeding.
Որպես շարքային քաղաքացի հնարավոր է որ չկարողանամ ազդել կամ ինչ որ ձևով հասնեմ իմ ուզածին, դուք շարունակ քաղաքային իշխանությունները շարունակեն իրենց աշխատանքը, խնդրանքս այն կլինի գոնե 2 փարքինգներին ձեռ չտալ, ինչի համար, որովհետև դրա նախադեպը կա, հենց մանկահասակ երեխաների այդ կլինիկայի դիմացը այդ 2-3 բիզնեսներ կան Ադամս մեկ այդ Փալմերի այդ անկյուն այդ արգելանշանները դրել են, բայց փարքինգին ձեռ չեն տվել, շատ հանգիստ մեքենաները գնում գալիս են, բայց մինչև մտեղ մեր տնից մինչև հասնես այդ փողոցի այդ անկյունը բավական երկար ժամանակ է տևում, որտեղ աշխատանքային ժամերին շատ տրաֆիկ է։ Մինչդեռ այդ բանի չէին հանդիպել, ազատ կարողանում էին մեքենաները շատ արագ գնալ։ Իմ խնդրանքս դա է, որ խնդրում եմ հարգեք որպես շարքային քաղաքացի եւ որպես մեծ ընտանիք ունեցող, որովհետեւ չեն կարող պետք է ընտանիքիս անդամների կեսը փողոցի մեկ կես մասը ձեռովանի, մեկը այն մեծ ձեռքովանի, որ կարգապահ վարորդը գոնե կամացածնի կամ կանգնի, որ մենք կարողանանք այդ դրայվից դուրս գալ։ Եվ հետո ներս մտնելն էլ է խնդիր։ Պատկերացրեք, գալիս եք ժամերով դες կանգնել գնալ, շատ ավելի է բարդացնելու վիճակը, քան թե օգնելու։ Իմ կարծիքով կարելի է մի հատ դամփ դնել այդտեղ, որովհետև ոչ շատ բարձր է, ոչ էլ շատ ցածր է։ Գոնե մեքենան գկա տեղ կկամացանցրի, մինչև եթե կարկազած վարորդը, էլի արագություն հավաքի, արդեն դիմացը հիլն է, դիքն է, չի կարա հասցնի։ Ինչ որ միտեղ կկարգավորվի, այդ նշանը չի տա։ Շնորհակալություն։
Finally, as a member of the community, and since
No, you can translate, yes. You have to translate the remainder of it.
As a member of the community, and I don't want to take too much of your time, and I don't want to bother the flow of this meeting. I want you to take action on this item because even though there are a few childcare businesses up the street, they had parking signs installed there as well. However, they did not lose their parking spots in front of them. And during work hours, there's a lot of traffic, and it takes an extremely long time to get to my house. And my family needs to coordinate with one another in order to leave the driveway or to enter, where one member needs to stand on the street and signal to the oncoming drivers to slow down or to eventually stop so that the other member can leave. Sometimes it takes us a long time to get in and out of the driveway, and I don't want to inconvenience my family with this issue. In my opinion, installing a hump will be a good solution to this issue. It's not too high, neither too low, and drivers will eventually slow down if they see this obstacle on the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have the next speaker come up. And Mr. Ajamian, can you also bring up on Google Maps or Google Earth the corner of Schofield and Adams? Just want, for us to get a good sense of it. And who's the next speaker?
Next speaker is Shane Lee. Shane?
We'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, City Council. My name is Shane Lee. I'm the chapter leader for Glendale Yimby. We support traffic calming measures. Adams neighborhood is an amazing neighborhood. Not only does that place need more housing density, but it also needs more traffic calming measures and stop signs to protect children and residents. Please approve this item. Thank you.
All right, next speaker.
Next speaker is Carrie Kimball.
Good evening. I'll keep this really brief. I'm so grateful for the traffic calming measures that have taken place in the square. It has made such a dramatic difference. Like every time you'd go to that three-way stop, you'd almost get hit or pedestrian. So it's been amazing for our community. So grateful. As far as the Schofield stop sign, we desperately need it. I was just walking down there today and just saw so many cars just speeding by. You can look at the little sign, the 25 mile per hour, and you just see how fast cars are going. It isn't stopping the traffic, and I agree with this gentleman at 1255. There is reckless driving on Adams, and we do need this measure to protect our community and the kids. There's so many kids that are like live in this community and going to the park, and I hope that you support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who else do we have? Any callers?
Mayor, that's all.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions on this? Not. I have one question. I know it's not specifically related to the granting of the hearing, but I did drive by this neighborhood, and I've spent quite a bit of time in the area, especially when I was still able to do my coffees in the park. So there's some traffic mitigation measure needed. My question is, and just to be clear, I know a few people said a four-way stop. It's actually an all-way stop because there is no four ways there. It's a T intersection, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And just up the street, not too far from there, is Cornell, right? And it's a street coming in from the other direction into that. What was the reasoning for wanting to put the stop at Schofield versus Cornell? What difference does that make?
So that's obviously something we are going to highlight, but for today's discussion, we're happy to answer that question. So for that, I'll ask our principal traffic engineer to come to the podium to answer the validity of why we chose this intersection versus, because it was discussed during the TPC of why we selected this, but a pastor can answer that question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, Pastor Casanova, principal traffic engineer. So the reason that Schofield stood out amongst the nearby intersections, because Schofield is a wider intersection than Cornell, and it also has existing sidewalks. So being this all-way stop would also provide a controlled point crossing for pedestrians. We saw the opportunity to be able to implement crosswalks in the future more easily because of the existing sidewalks and the wider
So
intersection.
the sidewalk was a consideration.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and can we, Mr. Ajemian, I'm going to ask you to perhaps expand that.
This one here?
Yeah, if we can go to this, if we can go to the street view.
You could just click ahead and get to Cornell.
Okay, so if you can click ahead, a little ways up. One more. Okay, now turn. No, go back. Got it. Turn it around. No.
You got it.
That's, we went up too far.
We get this way.
Nope.
Hold on.
Got it. Nope. All right, now we're giving everyone at home headache by, yes.
There
Now
we
go down. One more, a little bit more, a little further. Okay, right there. So there you see that. You can go down just one gentle click more. Okay, this is Cornell. And Mr. Casanova is saying there's no sidewalks here, which was what you took into consideration. Well, sidewalks on the other side, but not on this side where there would be the stop sign. Okay, and can you go back down to the original intersection that is part of the discussion? So, and right there with the car parked in front of the house and the one in front of the driveway, can we zoom in? Is that the gentleman's home? Is this his house?
He's at 1250.
Where is 1255? Which home is 1255?
No,
It's on the left side at the top of the T of the intersection.
Which one is it?
You just put in.
Yeah, just let's put in the address 1255.
Oh, there. 1255 Adams.
Nope.
South Adams.
There we go.
That's it.
Sure, let's just go into the street view. I think the street view is the one that's going to give us the better. Okay.
Is that it?
Okay, and where would the stop sign impact?
Right there where that blue car is.
Yeah, it's approximately where the gray car is. Blue.
So that would be a red zone, is that what the issue is?
That's correct. The stop sign would be there and approximately 30 feet of red curb in advance.
Do you need a red curb?
You do for visibility of the stop sign, because if we don't put it, a truck could park, or a tall vehicle could park in front of it and block the stop sign.
Okay, so now if we can go on Schofield for a minute. All right, this is going a little further down. Now turn around to face Adams. So if you, and please, if you can go forward one more time, Mr. Ajemian. Okay, so now here, you see where there was originally a stop written on the side, on the ground, and then someone, I'm assuming our crews, came by and drew a new stop on the ground. And I'm assuming part of that was, like, that person, I'm sure, is not too happy with having a stop sign there, right? They have issues probably coming in and out of their driveway. How does that impact the neighborhood? Has anyone talked to that resident and what their thoughts are on this? Because they already have an existing stop sign there.
Correct, sir. There wouldn't be any impact because there's already a stop sign there, and at that location, we'll usually put in less red curb because there's a driveway there already restricting cars from parking in front of it.
It's just a very awkward situated driveway and intersection. But did that resident at that corner approve of this? Do we know? They agreed to the three-way stop?
The residents that were surveyed were from south of this intersection, approximately 500 feet, and north of the intersection, 500 feet. So that would include this residence.
So we don't know specifically that resident approved it or not?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right, those are my questions. Any comments or thoughts from the council?
Question.
Councilmember Najarian.
So is this the gentleman that took over the meeting? That there was an allegation that one of the residents took over the meeting at the TPC. Were you at the TPC meeting?
Yes, I was.
Is this the gentleman that took over the meeting?
This gentleman that spoke today?
Yeah, just now.
He did speak at the TPC meeting, that's correct.
And
Take over the meeting?
I think in fairness, it was a lot of questions back and forth, from my understanding, with
Okay.
with members of the TPC.
Yes,
so
and I believe there
depends how you
wasn't
interpret that.
there wasn't
He's
an
obviously
official interpreter.
language impaired, English language impaired.
Yes.
Let's talk about that 5th TPC commissioner. Was that commissioner asking for more information? If, in other words, the issue before us is, what do we want to do? Not decide if we want the stop sign or not. Was that commissioner just not getting involved? Sometimes, you don't want to get involved and take
Councilmember
sides.
Najarian, are you asking for clarification on the abstention vote?
Yeah, the abstention. It was 2-2 with 1 abstention. Is there any hope that, I'd like to see a decision from the commission. Do you have any hope that that commissioner, upon further analysis or consideration, would come out on either side of the issue? Or did he just say, forget it, I'm out of this?
So Councilmember Najarian, so obviously we don't want to speculate on how if this was brought back before the TPC, how that commissioner would vote. But we have had subsequent conversations relative to that. We have gone into the field on Adams and Schofield. We have met with one of the commissioners in the field to understand that. So if it were to go back before the commission, we feel like we can present the information that wasn't presented at the time, or we didn't have readily available, and we would be able to answer those questions in hopes that the item would pass.
So you think that person would make a vote one way or the other? I don't care about it passing. The point is that it's a commission that's tasked to the commission, and it's here before us because they couldn't make a decision. If it is not the way you want it, there obviously could be an appeal, but I'd like to give first crack for the commission because that's why we've set up the commissions to
Understood.
handle these.
We'll obviously we'll be ready to answer those specific questions, and we'll have additional information ready in the event that there's additional questions that come up out of that. So we're confident that we could provide the necessary information.
You think there'd be a vote, a decision?
I would hope so, yes.
There'd be white smoke from the chimney or whatever. Okay.
I would hope so, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I have some comments, but.
Sure. Go ahead, now
but
would be the
not-
time.
Not in the way of questions. So, not really a question to you, so if you want to sit down, you can, but I guess, yeah, my feeling is, and I watched that, I think it was wrongly decided by the Transportation Commission. Perhaps they didn't have all the facts or whatever, but I don't think it should go back to them. I think this has been going on since, what are we here, 2021? And even before that, for many years, the community has sought to have some kind of traffic calming here. So, I don't want to further delay this. We know that this is a dangerous roadway. Because there have been multiple collisions along this roadway. We know that there's quite a bit of speeding because the 85th percentile speed, it was measured at 34 miles per hour, I believe. And that's against a posted limit of 25 miles an hour. And for people who don't understand how the 85th percentile works, that means that 15% of the cars that were measured were actually going at 35 or more. Isn't that right? Yeah, that's how it works. Just want to make sure people aren't just taking my word for it, that staff agrees. So there is quite a bit of speeding along this road. There's a lot of foot traffic down around Palmer because, Coffee Shop Park, a lot of people enjoy that area. We can't install speed humps, unfortunately, because it is a primary fire emergency route, or whatever the correct terminology is. So speed humps are not an option. We tried those traffic dots, or whatever you call those things, and they were noisy, right? Or maybe not traffic dots, some rumble strips, and they were noisy. So I know years ago I brought this up to your predecessor, Mr. Emrani, and talked about a little traffic circle there. And the neighborhood didn't want that. So we've just been over this thing again and again and again over many years. And clearly, the neighborhood, the community at large, is strongly in support of this. 33 of the 43 affected residents, and the only reason it's 33 is I believe they weren't able to get to all the 43 because many people are not home or they're not living there, whatever. So I think everybody that they actually made contact with, except for this one gentleman, did support this stop sign. I mean, I have sympathy certainly for Mr. Babakhanian's situation. No one likes losing something that they have. And he's probably had, you know, this space available to him for maybe many years. But it is public space, and it's really clearly in the public interest that we provide the traffic calming. And there is no better location. Staff has looked at this. Any other location is going to have its own set of issues which are even worse than this. So, you know, my view is let's go ahead, let's decide this at the council level. And give the community the relief that they deserve.
So you would be supporting for
Yes.
moving forward with the hearing. Yes, Mr. Garcia?
Just again, I want to state for the record, this is to decide whether it's substantial enough to have a hearing, not to decide on the merits of the hearing. So
Okay.
this is whether it's substantial enough to go and have a hearing.
Yes.
Well, I think it is substantial enough to have a meeting, that's for sure. As far as city council reviewing it or the TPC, I wouldn't mind it either way, but I think TPC had done a lot of work on it, and our public works director has the confidence that he can provide enough information for them to come up with a decision one way or the other. I think it should go back to TPC and let them decide what has to be done. I mean, if that decision is not, you know, it could be appealed either way. So, but I believe it should go back to TPC, and they are the decision-making body on this as a decision-making body commission. So let them, you know, the people have to know that sometimes they have to bite the bullet and make a decision one way or the other. So let them go back and make the decision. I hope that Mr. Hernandez, I'm sure that you can provide enough information for the commission to come up with a decision.
Okay. So I could go truly either way on this. I'm fine with moving forward with the hearing, but I think we'll be at a deadlock. I'm also okay with this going back to the commission if it can be done in a timely manner, so not a lot of time goes by, because this neighborhood, more than anything else, needs relief from the speeding on Adams. That is very clear. I think even Mr. Babakhanian agrees that that is the major issue. It's unfortunate that he'll have to lose one of his parking spots, or a parking spot he uses for his household. But, you know, in looking at the Cornell Street, if you were to put a stop sign on the side coming down the hill, a resident there would have to also lose a parking spot potentially. And parking in this part of Glendale is at a premium. South Glendale is very parking space challenged. So one way or another, someone loses space. It's just a matter of whom. But if you believe that you can provide information that would influence the TPC to come to a decision, either sway them one way or another, I'm fine with that. But I do want us to do something as a council, or as a city rather, and staff, to provide relief in that area. That's not the rumble strips. I hear what the gentleman said about a speed hump, but I think a speed hump would actually cause a greater issue. It's probably more of a danger given the speeds that people would come down that hill on. I can just envision cars getting some air and some lift, depending on the speed they're coming on when they hit that bump. So if you think that you can bring it to TPC and get a decision, I would support that.
So Mayor Pro Tem, just for the council's consideration, the next regular scheduled meeting is this coming Monday on the 28th. We have to post the agenda by Thursday, which doesn't give us much. I mean, we'll have to update the existing presentation, so it's possible that we can get it ready, but I want to confer with staff. The next meeting after that is December 23rd, which is the next regular.
I think it's, if you can do it for this coming week, that's better, because otherwise we end up in a deadlock here. There's also the possibility we can have, I'm sorry, yes, Mr. Garcia?
So, yeah, so in order to have the hearing on the next TPC meeting, there's also a
Would have to
7-day
be
notice,
noticed.
which they won't be able to make. However, the TPC can hold a special meeting. So that's another option.
Well, we can also hold this over until we have a full council. Because that's what, that seems to be the direction we would be in.
Yeah, my preference would be to hold this over, see if there's a consensus here, if there can be 3 votes here to either take it here or bring it to the Transportation Commission. I don't think we lose any time because the Transportation Commission can't hear it at their next meeting anyway, apparently.
That is correct. That's
So we don't lose
clarification.
any
but
time by doing that. If it turns out that there's a decision to take it to the Transportation Commission, I would strongly encourage we have a special meeting so that this can get addressed quickly.
So let me just, we have either a deadlock, which means it'll be carried over, or we can wait and see if it gets pushed to TPC. Either way, prepare for a TPC presentation, depending on how our votes turn out here on the dais, which means, get all the paperwork ready for the noticing, et cetera. But, there may be a decision next time we have a full council. Mr. Garpetian.
How long do you need to be ready for either a TPC meeting or a council meeting?
So we need,
Realistically,
I would say we could probably turn this report within a week
so is there a way to change the TPC's meeting?
through a
Instead
special
of
meeting.
next week,
Right.
have cancel the next week meeting and have another one right the week after as a special meeting?
So I'm guessing the TPC have the regular meeting next week, but then on this particular item, if the council were to remand it, they could hold a special meeting and notice a public hearing and have it at that meeting.
Is your next TPC meeting really jam-packed?
There's one substantive item, but the rest of it's pretty straightforward. It's not what I would consider a jam-packed item. But I will say, for the council's consideration, we are going to canvass the commission for quorum for the meeting on the 23rd. But at the same time, we can also let them know whatever's decided tonight, that if it's the direction of the city council to schedule a special meeting, we can canvass them there as well on Monday.
Right, what I'm saying is, instead of having a meeting next week and have a special meeting, maybe you have a meeting in 2 weeks, only one meeting this month, in 2 weeks, if they can attend. I know that they have their own schedules as well, so.
I think we'll have to verify with the availability of the commissioner,
Okay.
so.
I think that you have the sense of council, so the options would be, try to get it prepared for a TPC, which needs to be noticed, and there needs to be the notice of the public hearing. Or does it need to be noticed to go to TPC?
My
Mr.
understanding
Garcia?
is the 7-day, maybe I can ask Aaron to.
Just other than the
explain.
regular Brown Act posting, correct?
Apologies. Aaron Israel, Senior Assistant City Attorney. Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian, under the City Code's Uniform Appeal Procedure, if the council remands, a 7-day notice of the rehearing by the TPC is required, which is why the Public Works Director and the City Attorney are saying there's insufficient time between tonight's meeting and next Monday's
okay.
regular TPC meeting to provide the notice.
Thank you. So that is not likely to happen unless there's a meeting outside of the normal meeting hours or time of the TPC. So I would suggest we bring this back to council for a full council and then see if there's any movement up here to sustain the Public Works Director's request to move forward with the public hearing, and at the same time prepare for it to be remanded to the TPC with the hope that there's movement there. Either way, I think that we're going to need to do something for the community. Anyone who is here from the Adams Hill neighborhood know that we are very concerned about this issue. The speeding has to stop. Everyone agrees on that, including the gentleman who is upset over potentially losing a parking spot. Let's just do this the right way. Thank you. Is there a consensus on that? Do we need to have a official action?
If there's no motion on the options, then, so if someone can make a
Continue it
motion to continue
until
November
Full
5th.
council.
November
November
5th.
5th, yeah.
We could just continue it without a vote?
You could, because this is not a hearing, so unless there's an objection, this can be just pushed to November 5th.
We can either take a vote and then it gets carried over anyways, or we just do it amicably and we decide that's what we're going to do. Correct?
So you'll be ready for November 12th and can you schedule it for November 12th?
For city.
If we come back on November 5th and the vote is that the hearing comes back to council, can you schedule it for November 12th, the following?
There's a notice required for that as well.
That's what I'm saying, then it's gonna go another 2 weeks after that, that's a month. So if you can be ready in a week, maybe they can have it ready,
But it
7 days.
But it can't
Notice?
be according to our legal counsel because of the nature of this
Can't be
decision.
next week. It has to be at least
No,
2
I
weeks.
understand that. What I'm saying, it can't be next week, but it could be the following week, which is 2 weeks from today, for example, right? If you have a special meeting, you need 7 days for a special meeting. So it will be faster to go back to TPC instead of coming to council in 2 weeks. Then you have another week. You cannot schedule it for the following week. And when are we dark in November? Do we know?
Just on the 26th.
26. So it may even fall beyond that. So-
What I would say is if you come back on the 5th and you decide to take the appeal, then the staff can probably read on the 19th.
That's correct.
Seeing shaking heads, yes, nodding heads, so the
It will be
19th.
19. So if they go towards TPC, it will be maybe a few weeks earlier than that.
Correct, assuming there are no appeals of the subsequent TPC decision.
And you're assuming we need to have quorum.
That's
for
exactly
that.
what I was, yes.
So,
Yeah, I think it's cleaner for us to do it because it involves a special meeting, it's, there's quorum issue, it goes to TPC, however it's decided, it could get appealed again. I think we just close.
we could end up at the TPC anyways.
I know.
But I think that it requires our colleague who is not with us tonight to be able to weigh in on it as well. Mr. Najarian.
Yeah, I just want to say, so we're talking about setting this for a public hearing. And it is not appropriate for any of us at this point, before we have that hearing, to say that we want to put stop signs on Adams. It's completely inappropriate. You've prejudged the issue, and I don't know if the city attorney agrees with me on that, but you've got to keep an open mind. It's a public hearing. You've got to take all the input and then make your decision. You can't declare that I'm going to vote for this and let's do this now. That's not right.
Well,
And we
traffic
shouldn't do that.
calming, not specifically
Traffic
stop
calming is
signs.
different, but to say,
There needs
I
to be
want stop
something done.
signs.
There needs to be something done, and I'll leave it at that, right? Generally.
I'm just saying, we all have to keep an open mind.
I
As much
always
as we want to please Adams Hill people, it has to be a fair hearing for both sides. That's all I want to say.
Noted. Thank you. All right. Mr. Garcia?
So
Mr.
is the
Tuck-Collin?
consensus to continue and push this to November 5th? Any objection?
Any objections to moving this to November 5th? There is none? Okay. All right. We'll come back with this. It is election night.
It's election.
Indeed.
How
It
can
is
you have
election
a
night.
meeting on election
Well,
night?
we always have. We always have.
Because tomorrow is today, and today was yesterday, tomorrow. You got-
Mr. Jemian, can we have the next item read into the record, please?
Yes, item C, Glendale Water and Power regarding Grayson Power Plant, Unit 9 chiller overhaul and 5-year service agreement with Train US Incorporated. One, resolution dispensing with competitive bidding and authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter into and execute a service agreement with Trans US Incorporated for the overhaul, preventative maintenance, and service of the GPP Unit 9 chiller for a period of 5 years and an amount not to exceed $930,790. 2 would be resolution of appropriation.
All right, Mr. Mallon?
Sure, give me a second.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Good evening, Pro Tem Kasakian, members of the council. My name is Scott Mellon. I'm Assistant General Manager, Power Management at Glendale Water and Power. I'm here tonight to discuss having Train USA Inc. perform a chiller overhaul on our only remaining generator, as well as establish a 5-year service agreement with the same company. The Unit 9 chiller is a 2,000-ton Train center vac, water-cooled duplex centrifugal chiller consisting of 2 compressors and an evaporator and condenser. It's a very technical way of just saying it's a really big air conditioner. It was installed over 20 years ago and is used in the unit's chilled water system to cool the air that is drawn in by the combustion gas and to maximize power generation during high ambient temperatures. Since its installation, various non-original equipment manufacturer vendors have been used to perform preventative maintenance and service the chiller. This was effective for some of the smaller parts and systems, but not so for an overhaul and to obtain a 5-year warranty. A sole source justification is necessary as Trane is the original equipment manufacturer of the Unit 9 chiller and the only authorized vendor having factory trained and certified technicians who have proprietary access to the Trane software and controls and the engineering knowledge necessary to provide the full service support that is needed to properly maintain and service the Unit 9 chiller. At present, the chiller is out of service, resulting in a 13 megawatt D-rate of Unit 9 as compared to its peak output. So essentially, it's dropped down from 45 to 47 down to 35. To determine the source of the chiller outage, the power plant staff had Trane perform multiple inspections and tests where several issues were identified, including the Circuit 1 compressor had very dark oil and a high acid content, which is likely caused by motor burnout. The Circuit 2 compressor had high vibration and erratic amperage fluctuations that could be due to open rotor bars, usually associated with motors. And the refrigerant monitor, which is leak detector, is currently not working and requiring replacement. In order to return the chiller to its full capability, Trane recommends overhauling the chiller, which includes both compressors, utilizing the Trane Centrovac R renewal service program, adding a refrigerant cleanup kit to the Circuit 1 compressor and to clean up the oil, and replacing the failed refrigerant monitor. The Trane R renewal service program is a field manufacturing the chiller compressors with their motors shipped to Trane's motor shop for refurbishment. A 5-year limited factory warranty is included with a 5-year Trane service agreement. On top of that, staff recommends dispensing with competitive bidding and authorizing a service agreement with Trane to perform the one-time overhaul work and provide 5 years of preventative maintenance and service for an amount not to exceed $930,790, which includes a 25% contingency for any additional repairs, replacement parts, and refrigerant that may be needed during the overhaul. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. No questions? All right, anyone else? Not?
I'll move the item if there are no questions.
I presume the refrigerant will be recovered in a eco-friendly manner?
Yes, we have an obligation to do that.
Is it Freon? I mean, are you using Freon
You know,
still
I'm
for
not
those
sure
commercial?
which one it is. I don't think it's Freon. It's probably one of the more, the
You'll
newer
recover it,
equivalent
you'll
types.
vacuum it out and do all
Right,
that.
and it's to our benefit to do it because there's costs associated with replenishing it. So we recover it and then put it back in.
Reuse it. Okay, great. Thank you. I'll move the item if there's.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Najarian, seconded by Councilmember Garpetian. Do we have any callers or speakers on this item?
Mayor, I do not have any callers or speakers on this item.
Okay, and with that, let's have the roll call.
Councilmember Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Asadurian, and Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Mellon.
you.
And we have the next item read into the record.
Next item is item D, management service regarding demanding the immediate release of Armenian hostages by Azerbaijan. One resolution for adoption. Mayor, I do have a card for this item.
Okay. So this was my request that I had made a few weeks ago, calling upon the government of Azerbaijan and our government here in the United States to also call on the government of Azerbaijan to immediately release individuals that they are holding captive, a number of whom are officials who were democratically elected in open and monitored elections in the Republic of Artsakh before it was ethnically cleansed and depopulated of its indigenous Armenian population. The reason why this is of significance to us is because we had signed a sister city agreement with Marduni. One of the individuals who visited us here in these council chambers, Mr. Babayan, is one of the captives held along with Ruben Vartanian, who is one of the co-founders of the Aurora Humanitarian Global Prize. With that, I think it's important, given the number of individuals we have living in Glendale who were impacted by this humanitarian crisis, this gross violation of human rights against all the principles that we as Americans stand for, to speak out and call upon our administration and the government of Azerbaijan to do the right thing and support the release of these captives. So can we have the first speaker? Any comments or questions by any of my colleagues? Yes, Councilmember Najjar.
I have a question. It is really a crisis and a reflection on Azerbaijan for detaining and imprisoning these elected leaders. These aren't soldiers. These aren't mercenaries. These are people that were elected by the people of Artsakh, and their only crime was trying to serve their residents. It is very painful to think of these hostages. I had a good friendship with Bako Sahakian, who was the former president before Araik Harutyunyan, and I applaud this motion and this resolution because we really have to do more to just free these people who have committed no crime.
And Councilmember Najarian, you and I had an opportunity to meet with the attorney representing a lot of these cases, who's monitoring them. She visited us here at City Hall a few weeks ago and detailed some harrowing stories of the absolute negligence of the government of Azerbaijan to torture, the inhumane conditions that these individuals are being kept in, how many of the folks who were taken into captivity, who were taken hostage, haven't been heard from and may presumably be dead. So with that, I think it's important. Yes, Councilmember Garpetian.
Yeah, I echo my colleagues' comments, and also these elected officials, they had a choice. They could have left in the early process of, evacuation, if you want to call it that, the forced removal of people from their native lands, but they decided to stay and make sure that everyone else got out, safely, as many people as they could. So, and they got captured at the end. So, and I agree with everything my colleagues said.
Thank you. All right, may we have the speaker, please?
Sure, Miran Tomajan.
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, honorable council members, as a 19-year resident of Glendale and great-grandson of Armenian genocide survivors, I extend my profound gratitude to the City Council of the City of Glendale for proposing this resolution demanding the immediate release of Armenian hostages by Azerbaijan. I also commend city staff, Stephanie Mikhlian, for an excellent report with respect to this resolution. Despite the November 9, 2020 ceasefire statement signed by Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia, which ended the 44-day war on Artsakh, and one of its provisions, which stipulates that, quote, the parties shall exchange prisoners of war, hostages, and other detained persons and dead bodies, end quote, the dynastically autocratic Aliyev regime in Azerbaijan continues to unlawfully hold Armenian hostages with impunity. The hostages who are named in the city's proposed resolution include civilians like Lebanese-Armenian dual citizen Viken Elcekjian, prisoners of war, and democratically elected leaders of the Artsakh Republic. In the wake of Artsakh's War of Liberation in the early 1990s, some of Artsakh's democratically elected leaders who are currently held without legitimate due process by Azerbaijan visited Southern California and the city of Glendale specifically to shed light on major infrastructure, hospital and school construction, economic development, and viticulture projects in Artsakh. Spanning 2.5 decades, scores of Glendale residents invested their time and funds generously in Artsakh, a 3 millennia-old indigenous territory of the Armenian highlands, known for producing generations of strong-willed families devoted to their Christian faith, traditional customs, unique dialect, and oneness with their ancient land. According to reports and findings from organizations like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and others, Armenian POWs and civilians held hostage by Azerbaijan continue to be summarily abused. Human Rights Watch states that POWs have been subjected, quote, to cruel and degrading treatment and torture either when they were captured during their transfer or while in custody at various detention facilities. Human Rights Watch also has documented cases in which, quote, Azerbaijani forces used violence to detain civilians and subjected them to torture and inhuman and degrading conditions of detention, end quote. On June 13, 2024, one of the civilian leaders of Artsakh, prominent philanthropist and current hostage, former Artsakh State Minister Ruben Vartanian's legal team submitted an urgent appeal to the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, imploring the latter to condemn the torture and ill treatment to which Azerbaijan has subjected him. Due to lack of meaningful action by the UN Security Council, the unwillingness by its influential member countries, including the US and France, to sanction Aliyev and Azerbaijan's military brass for their responsibility over abuses inflicted upon Armenian hostages and detainees, the Aliyev regime feels emboldened to continue to defy basic norms of international human rights law. Support this resolution, as does the Armenian Rights Council of America, and thank you for bringing this up. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. If there are no other comments, some may ask why why get involved in this. It's because this is an issue that really internationally, as Mr. Tumajan stated, even at the UN, very, very few nations, especially the powerful nations, when we look at for beacons of hope and democracy, are remaining silent. And to quote someone who once said, when the whole world is silent, even one voice is powerful. So let that voice be. Glendale's, I will ask my colleagues to see if we have a willingness to make the motion and a second and move to a vote.
Move the item.
Right?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Garpetian, seconded by Councilmember Brotman, and I know that the mayor has expressed her support for this as well, although she couldn't be here for the vote. This is also very timely because Azerbaijan has been granted to host the COP29 conference, an environmental conference, which is, I think, the height of hypocrisy, given that the country is a petro-dictatorship funding its war machine and its human rights violations on the back of petroleum exports. So hopefully this message will ring loud and clear. With that, let's have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Brotman.
Yes.
Garpetian.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Mayor Asadrian. And Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. All right, next item.
Well, communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report. Mayor, I do have 4 cards.
All right.
First one is Lisa Morris. Lisa, are you here?
As are we. But welcome.
Lisa, you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, but thank you. Okay, so it's kind of like, it's really nothing new. You keep hearing about the increase in utilities. If you're following any of the social media pages, it's far more than what they're representing it to be. They're saying 11%, 14%. But I have people who their rates have gone up 64% since last year. $393 a year ago, now it's $647. I had another one say it was $1,000 more than last year, and their new bill is $2,280. Really? Another one said it went from $250 to $700. Another one said theirs increased by 30%. And that's all electric. It's not the whole GWP bill. One said theirs used to be $165 to $200. Now it's $800. One said theirs increased by double. Last year, one said last year their range was in the $600 range. Now it's $1,100. Another one said their bill was $2,100. Another one said it was $1,900. Another one said it went from $1,250 to $1,500. That's a small increase. This one's a kicker. One was on vacation for 3 weeks, came back, and their bill was $3,000. I can't explain any of those, but you can look them up on social media and find out who they are. My own went from, mine was 55 to 85% increase, and that was month to month. I didn't look at last year's. That maybe it would have been different, because as I know in the summer it does go up. But mine was lower than my neighbor at 64%. But she admitted that she keeps her air conditioner at a cooler temperature than I do. I follow the 78% rule for the daytime. But where I'm leading to with that is this 9.2 million overcharge for the PBC rate. And I know you've already voted to keep it for other purposes, but don't you think you should have put that as a vote to the customers? Don't you think that should have gone back to them to help reduce these increased rates that they have to bear when everything is going up in all facets of cost to consumers? I just think that was a bad decision. And so that's really the message I wanted to say, not only on my behalf, but many, 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 many other customers. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you for sticking around to address us. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Aris Mangasarian. Aris, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm here to express my frustration with the City of Glendale's failure to enforce the law and the endless leniency granted to landlords who neglect their responsibilities. The city has given landlords extension after extension, and each delay leaves tenants like my family stuck in unsafe and unhealthy living conditions. My family and I live on Rosedale Avenue and have been dealing with toxic mold, rodent infestations, exposed wiring, and structural hazards for years. The landlords were given until the 15th of this month to make the repairs. They've done almost nothing. Just started one part of one issue out of a long list of violations, and that's 2 weeks after the final deadline. Meanwhile, the city keeps looking the other way, letting this go on with no consequences. This situation is not new. My mother's cousin lived in our unit for nearly 30 years and lost her mother, father, and brother, who died at barely 40 years old. We recently discovered toxic mold in the unit, and I can't help but wonder, could their deaths and health issues have been related to this mold that's been left unchecked for years? Now, as part of the mold remediation, we've been told the process will take 1 week to 10 days. During that time, we'll have no access to kitchen or shower. When I asked about relocation, the landlord shrugged it off, saying the remediation company, neither the city, recommended it. Let me be clear. Just because the remediation company didn't recommend relocation doesn't mean it's acceptable to leave tenants without basic living necessities. After all, the construction company that built the gas chambers for the Nazis probably didn't recommend windows either. Or the Ottoman forces who led Armenians into the desert likely didn't consider whether they were equipped with water or food. It's not about what's recommended, it's about what's right. Let me get this straight. So no kitchen, no shower for up to 10 days, and the city is allowing this? This is a direct violation of city code, which guarantees access to basic facilities. Yet here we are with no plan in place for how these spaces will be restored and no accountability from the city. What's the purpose of housing department? They don't have legal experts, they don't mediate for tenants, they don't enforce the law. It seems like their only job is to let landlords and developers off the hook. What good is a department that doesn't protect the people it's supposed to serve? And this problem isn't new. In 2008, the city discovered the illegal wall in our unit, creating an unpermitted fifth unit. The number of units on a property is what determines our rental rights. 5 or more, and you have those rental rights. If the city had fixed this 15 years ago, we would have been covered under the Glendale Rental Rights Program, but we were or we weren't. I still haven't figured it out from the city attorney's office. We would have been covered under this, but we weren't because the city failed to enforce its own laws. Had they acted, we wouldn't be dealing with these issues now. 3 extensions, 15 years of negligence. How can we expect landlords to do the right thing when the city lets them off the hook every single time? They had to fix these issues, and the Housing Authority, Code Compliance, and the City Attorney's Office have all stood by, doing nothing to hold them accountable. In February, the Housing Authority even sent our landlord an erroneous email to my landlord, falsely claiming I wasn't authorized to live there, which led to harassment and eviction attempt. And what did the City Attorney's Office do? Nothing. The city's lack of enforcement has caused us emotional distress, health risks, and even professional setbacks. In July, I missed the second day of the California bar exam because the city scheduled an inspection on the same day. I tried to reschedule, no response. I missed the exam, and then they rescheduled the inspection without even telling me. That means I sat for the first day of the bar exam. The next day was a scheduled inspection from the city. I tried to reschedule it. They wouldn't respond. So the next day I decided to stay home and I'll take the bar exam in February. So I waited home the next day and nobody showed up. And then community development was like, oh, we forgot to tell you we rescheduled the inspection. Oh, and we reassigned your inspector because the first one was trash, literally. The new inspector was great. Daniel Reef, I'll give it to him. He did exactly the opposite of everything the first inspector said he couldn't do. So what kind of message is the city sending when it lets landlords continue to violate the law, ignore deadlines, and deny tenants' basic rights? The public deserves better. We deserve enforcement, not excuses. I urge this council to hold landlords accountable now. Stop giving endless extensions. Enforce the health and safety codes. Ensure tenants are relocated and provided essential facilities when basic necessities like kitchens and showers are unavailable. No more extensions, no more delays. Enforce the law. Thank you.
Next is Shane Lee. Shane, you have 5 minutes.
And who's after Mr. Lee?
It's Judy Riley,
Okay.
and that would be the last one, Mayor.
All right, please be on deck, Ms. Riley, and I'll be the last speaker.
All right. Hello, City Council. Again, my name's Shane Lee. I'm the chapter leader for Glendale YIMBY. We're affiliated with Abundant Housing LA. And first of all, I want to shout out my friend Laura Friedman. I've met her in person. She's awesome. She's amazing assembly member. I'm going to be super sad when she leaves. I'm very excited. I hope she wins and goes to Congress where she's going to do great things. So I just want to give a shout out to her because she's amazing and she made this city better and she makes her district better. Secondly, I want to talk about why parking minimums are problematic, and I think that we should eliminate them so that we can build more housing. When the supply of housing goes up, the price can go down, and that can make housing more affordable for everybody. So I just wanted to read an article from American Planning Association. It's called A Business Case for Dropping Parking Minimums. It was written in June 2022. And it says, Auburn, Maine is a quaint, picturesque river town dating back to the 18th century with a Main Street historic district of Victorian-era homes. There's also a Riverwalk, a hockey arena, and even a mall. But like lots of smaller towns all over America, COVID ravaged some of its businesses. A Ruby Tuesday restaurant closed, so did a locally owned brunch place and a Chinese buffet, and a French cafe and others. Something had to be done to replace the restaurants and encourage new businesses. So in June 2021, this city of 24,000 people eliminated all minimum parking requirements for commercial developments, thus reducing upfront costs for new businesses and expansions. It had an immediate impact. Later that autumn, the Olive Garden restaurant chain looked to open in Auburn and eyed the Ruby Tuesday site, but the company wanted to build more square footage. Under the old parking regulations, Olive Garden would have had to supply more parking spaces, but now it didn't, and the deal was done and approved. And this is a quote, "With COVID, we were searching for any way that could help businesses," says Eric Cousins, Auburn's longtime planning director. "This worked for us, and it's setting us apart from other communities." Indeed, municipal parking reforms to reduce or eliminate parking minimums are such a major movement now across the U.S. that they're even spreading and taking off in small-town America. Quote, "It's such a small but significant step that any city can take to reduce development costs and encourage more commercial and residential growth," says Rachel Quednow, program director at a Minnesota-based nonprofit called Strong Towns, which I create organization, that focuses on sustainable community initiatives such as parking reform. Quote, "I don't think there's any small town in America that doesn't want more businesses." And there's some other there's some other cities that have eliminated parking mandates: Culver City, San Jose, Sacramento, San Jose. I think we should prioritize people over parking. I think this city would be more beautiful if we had some, beautiful high-rise apartments instead of a lot of sprawling parking lots. High-rise apartments or just any sort of housing or even just a business creates more property tax. It creates more livable communities. I think it's more valuable to our community just in terms of the revenue it generates. Parking lots don't make us money as a city. They don't generate much money, but because they don't pay much property tax. But tall buildings, high-rise apartments, even just a 5 of 1 will generate much more revenue. And it just adds value to our city. So I just wanted to read that little snippet to encourage you to prioritize people over parking. And 20 more seconds, I also, I don't own a car, and I don't need the city council to make sure that the apartment that I go to has parking. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't like driving. I think it's sort of an overstep for the city to tell property owners how much parking they need. We should let the market determine how much demand there is for parking. If you want to build parking, go for it. But I think that these mandates lead to inefficient land use, and we don't have a parking shortage in the city. We have a housing shortage. So we should replace parking with housing. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. And since there's no other speakers or callers.
Judy Riley is next.
Okay, yes.
Judy Riley? Judy?
Going once, going twice. Judy Riley. All right. With that, there's no other items on the agenda. We have no new business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, we are adjourned at 9:14 p.m. Good night and good luck.